Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Pizza and Real Estate Podcast. This is Philip Simonetta, broker owner of Pier 21 Realty and the Florida Real Estate School by Pier 21 Realty. I'm here with my colleague and good friend, Mark McDonald, who is with Loan Depot. Mark, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, here with Loan Depot, man. Thanks for having me on, Philip. I've been in the real estate industry, mortgage industry now 27 years. Super glad to be on your podcast, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We have a really, really important topic tonight, and it's something that nobody is discussing in detail. The NAR settlement, the lawsuit, and the new rules are going into effect. And what's interesting is, the settlement date for it to go into effect is August 17th. However, each MLS took the liberty upon themselves to implement their rules at a different time. Now,
Wow.
Most of your agents, they're in one MLS, right? They work for a broker and they're in one MLS. However, your brokers are in multiple MLSs. For example, I'm in 3 in Florida. And so the rules go into effect in one MLS one day, another MLS a week later, and another MLS a day before the 17th.
Wow.
So if you have agents in one area, they got to do one thing. It's insanity. Now, what I want to do is tonight, I've been talking to agents that work at other brokers that, in the public. I'm talking to the public, and I'm talking about buyer broker agreements, which are now mandatory, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And they have no clue what I'm talking about. Like, they're coming to me to look at property. I'm like, listen, we got to, are you aware of the NAR lawsuit and the changes in the rules and the laws? And they're like, no, we have no idea. So I have to have that conversation with every one of them. And together, this video, because I'm going to show them the video. Because every time I got to talk to them,
resource.
Yeah, I'm talking to them. Everybody I talk to it's a half-hour conversation, and I just don't have a half hour to give everybody. So I'm creating this video not only so I can give it to people so they can understand what's going on. I'm going to use the MLS's own words and go through the video and explain it and put it into layman's terms for everybody, and also share it with agents, because a lot of agents I know have no idea what's coming, and I just don't believe it. This is career ending if you make a mistake.
Wow.
And you can be banned from an MLS if you make a mistake. You can lose your real estate license if you make a mistake. You can get thousands of dollars in fines. But you know what the kicker is? If you violate these rules in NAR's settlement, the $400 million settlement,
right.
If you violate these rules, Mark, you open yourself up to lawsuit, criminal violations, and civil violations. So if you actually,
that's a hammer. Oh my God.
That's really part of the settlement. So if you go, like, for example, if you show a property without a buyer agreement and you violate that rule and it's found, you will be banned from the MLS, and your broker will be banned from the MLS. That means they're out of business. They'll get $1,000 fine, and the DOJ and the lawyers who did all this can come after you personally and your brokerage.
Wow.
And that's what we're going to talk about. Like, you're hearing it from me. In a second, you're going to hear it from them. So what I want to do is I want to play this video that was given to brokers. This was a town hall that we were part of with an MLS.
Okay.
And I'm in 3 MLSs. Beaches MLS down in South Florida, which that covers St. Lucie County down to Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade. Then also I'm part of Stellar. Stellar covers from Daytona Beach over to Tampa, down to Cape Coral, and over to St. Lucie County. So that kind of takes the whole center of the state, and then I go down, and then I have Northeast Florida Association of Realtors, which is called Real MLS.
Okay.
And that's Jacksonville, St. Augustine down, and the whole northern part there that I'm in. So each one has different timing. Each one has different rules, and now I have agents everywhere, and agents can't break those rules, and it's crazy, man.
Wow.
So I wanted to take some time tonight, last minute, and put this together and publish this to the world, because the public has no clue. Half the agents have no clue, and a lot of the brokers are just like, I don't know. And so I want to share that with you guys. I'm going to put the video up, and we're going to get started going through that. And then after it, I'm going to show you all the documentation and the new rules and everything. And really, this is going to be an informative video. It's not going to be like one of the fun ones we do, making pizza and different things out in the this is serious. This is really serious, and I'm going to take it to a level no one else has, and really dig into it. So Yeah, man. Do you have any questions about? I mean, you're in the lending side. Have you heard much about it? Like, I'm just curious if the lending side. Like, do you know what's going on?
Well, I mean, we generally know what uh, the industry is working on. We have very, very talented individuals in the finance industry. They're just they've already kind of pre-worked a lot of the different scenarios that could be at play, and they ran them by all the agencies, Fannie Mae, which is HUD and Ginnie Mae and Freddie, and a lot of the investors on the jumbo side on like how they would interpret if a seller does in the future want to pay for commissions, buyer commissions, is it included maximum seller concession that's allowed per product. So
Yeah.
we have we're schooled on it. We're ready. We're ready kind of however each MLS and every broker decides to want to move forward. We'll be ready for them.
Yeah. As of now, there's multiple ways. You can have you can put it into the contract and just buyer and seller agrees that the seller is going to pay X amount or percentage to the buyer's prepaids and closing costs. That's the easiest way. However, the DOJ is not wanting that. They put a letter of interest in against that. So right now you can do it, but they're still fighting. It's not over. We don't even have the forms yet. Now, it's crazy. I mean, it really is, because nothing's definite, but yet the rules are in place, and nothing's even signed off until November. Like, it's not even settled till November. So I just don't know. It's so in the air. But what I want to do is I want to jump over to the town hall. So I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to start playing this video. And I want to do that because everything's there. It's their own words. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it, and we can critique it and explain to people as they're going through what exactly it means. So let's get started with that, man, and get into this. And let people really start to see what's going on. All right. So I'm going to pull this up here. And here is our town hall. This is our town hall video. Let me see. Can you see the screen there, Mark?
No, not yet.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to share the screen right now. Let me share the screen. There we go. All right, so there, it brings that up. Now, can you see the screen there?
Yes.
All right, cool. So let's get into this. Let's make sure the sound's working. Let me know, can you hear this, Mark? We should be good.
No noise.
Loud and clear?
No.
You got it, Mark?
No, I can't hear it.
You can't hear it? Hold on 1 second. Make sure we got the sound turned on here. Ooh, stop screen share. Very interesting. Sometimes the sound doesn't go on. It's really weird with the system. I'm still trying to learn this.
Well, this is a really good video you're going to show. You're going to hear it right from, in a sense, like the horse's mouth, right?
Absolutely. See, I hear it on my side. I don't know why you weren't hearing it. Let me see here. Let's get this going.
I could hear you talking, but I couldn't hear it. I don't.
Yeah, hold on a second here. Share audio. Share a tab instead. Okay, that's what I'm going to do then. All right, share. Okay, that's what it was. I was in the wrong tab. Let me see. Let me see if you hear this. Let me know.
Interesting, and welcome to the broker briefing.
You got it? Okay, that's what it was. Okay, here we go. Let's start it over.
So
this is the town hall meeting we were all part of.
Couple of housekeeping notes I will talk about here just real quickly. My name is Jennifer Thompson-Kirsting, and welcome to the broker briefing, navigating the changes from the NAR settlement that we're going to go over today. So again, thank you for joining us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to play the antitrust obligation before we get too started. This is being recorded for future reference, and we will get this out to everyone later this week. So we'll get.
Now, this is an antitrust obligation. Okay, this is to protect them, and I'm going to stop it after. I want you to pay particular attention.
Protect the MLS.
Protect the MLS, and you'll see in a second.
All right.
Get that out of the way. Antitrust, here we go.
Stellar MLS is a for-profit corporation whose shareholders and members are engaged in similar businesses. and Stellar MLS provides services to such shareholders and members. Whenever such persons engaged in similar businesses gather, or when corporations provide services to such similar businesses, there is a risk of antitrust liability or of the appearance of anti-competitive activity. Stellar MLS has adopted strict policies to avoid any such liability or appearances. Any departure from these policies could result in severe civil and criminal penalties to you as individuals, to your company, and to your association board and Stellar MLS.
Do you see that, man?
Yeah, serious.
They're literally blaming you. They're not covering you. They're not protecting you. Now, this is just Stellar MLS. Now, every other one's going to do the same thing. Because if you violate, or if Stellar violates this stuff, knowingly or unknowingly, they open them up to lawsuits from the lawyers, charges from the DOJ, and licensure loss, basically. Because
when you say you're meaning real estate agents that are part of that.
Real estate agents and brokers and
that are
partners,
part of the Stellar.
Correct. Anybody who's part of Stellar. So Stellar just protected themselves with that statement. And basically, just like NAR, threw all their agents and brokers under the bus. So let's get into this.
They're pushing all the liability down on the agent.
So thank you for that.
You hear what she said? Well, we got that out of the way. That's what she said. All right, so let's get into this.
For that audio there, Chris, you did a great job on that as always. So before we really jump in, I want to just introduce a few folks that are on the call with us today. We have our esteemed CEO, Mary Jo Cowan, who is with us today. She will be presenting. We have our esteemed president of the Stellar MLS Board of Directors, Mr. Jeff Fagan, with us today. Myself, I've already introduced. And then we also have Chris Lumia, our Senior Business Development Manager, with us today. So we are going to kick this thing off. I've got a lot of information to share with you, from the welcome that Jeff's going to give you in just a minute to everything about the settlement and the practice changes that we are required to enact as a result of the settlement. And Mary Jo's going to get into really the updates to fields and expectations and everything that you're really, really looking for. She's going to dive deep into this for you. And then if we have time, we'll talk about the value of the MLS beyond offers of compensation. So with that, Mr. Fagan, I will turn it over to you for a welcome message.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, that's a fat picture of me. So anyway,
like anybody cares about his picture, you know.
Welcome and thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your day and your week to spend with us. We're at a pivotal time, and obviously, and we don't have all the answers, and nobody has all the answers because we're in an unprecedented period of our careers and of the industry, frankly. As I was listening to the antitrust reminder, and I will honestly say that since all this has gone down since October 31st, although it happened very much, it started way before that. I've listened a little more carefully to it. And I hope as brokers that we embrace this opportunity to turn the page on the way we used to do things at the past, even though I think most of us probably believe it was going along quite nicely and quite fine. Obviously, there's people that differ in that opinion. And now there are sanctions and actions taken against us. So I hope we embrace the mindset that change is necessary, and it'll be okay in the long run, but it's going to take some getting used to. And as brokers, we're the gatekeepers of the actions of our agents, or we should be. And I hope we embrace that role and help navigate through this in a way that limits our liability, but also protects the consumer. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're reaching out to get additional education, and I hope that you'll spread the word, because frankly, MJ or Jennifer, I don't know how many people we have on the call right now, but we it's over 1,000, I hope, but it should be 4,000 or 5,000. We're one of the largest MLSs in the nation, and I think we need to spread the word and get more people to embrace this, because there's still a tremendous number of people that don't know as much about this as perhaps they should. So thank you for being here. Thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you, Jeff. That was beautiful. And yes, we have over 800 on the call right now. We had about 15 or 1600 registered. And so we hit about 50%, which is a great turnout, actually, when we look at things in a microscope. So awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. We'll be leaning on you to give some commentary as we go through this. I'm going to quickly get us through a recap and background. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but just to say, disruption only happens to the unprepared. So
what we're going to do here is they're going to give you a background on what has happened and what has caused this. It's a very short explanation for people who aren't aware.
Bring everyone up to speed.
Yep, this is going to bring you up to speed and really just let you know what's going on. And then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes. But this is important because the public and a lot of people don't know what's going on with this. As you heard, there's like 800 people on here. There's thousands of brokers. Every broker should be on here. This is what's happening,
I love that quote. We've been using that for quite some time now. And I personally have embraced that, not only in my business life, but in my personal life. So it's a great quote. I love that.
Yeah. We care about personal lives here. We're worried about what's happening to our careers.
Yeah. Right.
It just shows you what you're dealing with,
So let's talk about the practice changes timeline. And, March 15th, the Ides of March were upon us, right? And this proposed settlement agreement was announced. But that wasn't the start of things. Let's just remember that this has been going on since 2018. Okay, so things didn't just all of a sudden happen. There were lots of things that led up to this and a lawsuit that led up to this. And then on April 19th, the proposed settlement was filed with the court. On the 19th of April, also the Stellar Board of Directors voted to opt into the settlement. We're going to talk about that in a little bit greater detail in just a minute. On the 24th of April, the court preliminarily approved that agreement. And August 6th is the date I want you to really pay attention to. You're going to see a couple of dates through the slides here as Mary Jo's going through them. August 6th is a huge date that we want to make sure that everybody is aware of. And that date is August 6th. And that's when we're going to implement the practice changes that are required by NAR, regardless of that final hearing. I've heard that a lot. What happens to the November 26th date? Regardless of the result of that, NAR has mandated that these changes take place, and we will be implementing those on August 6th. So
now what's crazy, like I said before, they're implementing it August 6th. Beaches is, I think, August 8th or that week. And then NAR is August 16th. So each one has a different time of implementation. When the implementation date is the 17th. So I don't know why they're doing that. You have it's like they're trying to set the brokers up for failure. Because if I have an agent in NAR and I have an agent in Beaches and I have an agent in Stellar, and the agent in Stellar does something on the 9th, they're in violation. The agent in NAR, if they do the same thing, they're not until the 17th. So they're trying. It's like they're setting up people. Why would you not just say the 17th?
Right. And then with the 17th date, where did the 17th date come from, though?
That's in the settlement. That's part of the settlement. Okay. That's NAR. That's like NAR. Yeah.
So they're just accelerating the date.
Technically, even the 17th date, it's NAR's policy. It may not be in the settlement. It's NAR's policy that's when they're implementing it. NAR says this is the date it must be implemented. And then some of these MLSs took it upon their own selves to implement it sooner, probably to cover their asses, basically. Now, what's happening is what's even crazier. The new forms for listings, the new agreements aren't even out from Florida Realtors yet. We don't have them.
Wow. Okay.
Even today. So me as a broker, I have to have a lawyer draw up my new policies. I have a policy and procedure manual that every agent signs. I'm in the process of setting up an amendment to that every agent currently is going to have to sign and moving forward with this stuff in it. So I don't know what to put in there yet because I don't have the forms.
Man.
But it's like they're setting us up for failure. But I bet you the big brokers, with a quick check and donation won't be set up,
Right.
So you'll see where that's going with this whole conversation. All right, so let's get back to it.
Yeah.
Mark that down in your calendars. You're going to see it a lot. But I just want you to be aware of that. All right, so let's talk about the facts, just the facts. We're gonna this is part of that background, right? So even though the settlement's not finalized, I just said that, NAR has mandated that the rules and regulations that MLSs must institute now, regardless of the outcome of the settlement. Now, their deadline is August 17th. We're going to implement on when? August 6th. And we're doing that because we want to give you time. We want to give a little time between that final date that NAR has mandated as the deadline and our implementation date. So we are prepared and we'll be launching those changes on August 6th. Remember, Stellar MLS is a realtor-owned Realtor Association owned MLS, and therefore we are subject to those NAR mandates. Any mandatory rules that for MLSs that NAR implement.
Now I'm going to tell you, there's MLSs like MLS PIN. There are ones that aren't realtor owned, and they don't have to follow these rules.
Like any of the rules?
Any of the rules, because they're not part of NAR. They're not part of the whole thing. Like there's other MLSs around the country. Now, all the ones in Florida here that I'm in are all realtor owned. So you have to. But if you're not a member of NAR and you're not a realtor, you don't have to follow this. Now you might get sued. They might come after you next, but you don't have to follow this.
Right. Wow.
So let's get back in there.
Interesting.
We are subject to
and also that creates, maybe an edge to them, because in Florida, you don't have to have a buyer broker agreement to show a house legally, but now you must have a buyer broker agreement to show a house or you're in violation of this. And you'll see that in a second. So do you think that gives an unfair advantage? Maybe like antitrust.
Yeah.
People in other states who are able to do that, I'm just saying, what they're saying about antitrust, right?
Wow.
So let's go back.
And we have to implement them. Because we are a realtor-owned regional MLS, we are covered under the NAR settlement. So that's another great thing to remember, that we are covered as a realtor-owned regional multiple listing service. As a covered entity, we were not required to pay a portion of the NAR settlement. And I know that there's rumors about
she's
that.
going in
There's
and out,
myths about that going around, that Stellar had to pay X or Y.
I think it's their connection. Can you hear it okay?
No, I've heard lots of different things, but we were not required to pay any portion of that settlement amount.
Yep, I can hear fine.
We have to, I can't stress this enough, we have to bring forward these mandatory changes that we're going to go over today. We don't have a choice. We have to implement them. Again, we're a realtor-owned association. We're subject to those mandates, and we have to comply. All right, that's the hard stuff, right? So let me get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty. Mary Jo is going to go into much further detail on all these things, but when you really break it down, you're going to see a date up there in the upper left-hand corner, August 6th. Remember that date. By August,
unless you're in NAR beaches, just saying.
August 6th, we are going to eliminate and prohibit any requirement of offers of compensation in the MLS. That means they're going to go away. Mary Jo's going to dig into that, but just remember, compensation in the MLS will be eliminated and prohibited on August 6th. We will retain and define cooperation for MLS participation. We have to eliminate and prohibit participants, subscribers, and sellers from making any offers of compensation in the MLS to buyers, brokers, or other buyer representatives. The way I have been presenting this when I've talked to folks is just remember, if it's about compensation, it doesn't belong in the MLS. It cannot be in the MLS.
Oh.
Effective when? August 6th. That's the date.
Unless you're in beaches or NAR.
We are required to eliminate all broker compensation fields and compensation information in the MLS. Again, think about remarks. Mary Jo's going to dig into this again, but I'm going to drive these points home. In remarks, in public remarks, in any text field, in showing time remarks, anywhere you can find it, if it's in the MLS, it cannot relay or convey any offers of compensation. It has to be eliminated from the MLS.
It's crazy.
Okay, remember that's mandatory for all MLSs per NAR. We don't have a choice. We have to implement these. Some additional changes. The MLS must not create, facilitate, or support any non-MLS mechanism for participants, subscribers, or sellers to make offers of compensation. So I know we've all seen this. There's platforms out there that are trying to create things. Workarounds are not permissible if they're receiving MLS data. No MLS data. We cannot provide MLS data or data feeds to directly or indirectly establish or maintain a platform of offers for multiple
Wow.
brokers or other buyer representatives.
So the IDX feeds cannot go somewhere and lead back to this. If it does, MLS is in violation and can be sued, charged criminally, and the DOJ is coming. Any agent who gives it is the same thing. You open yourself up from being like put out of the settlement.
Right.
So again,
Wow.
use of a data feed must result with the MLS terminating the participant's access to any MLS data and the data feeds. So it's pretty serious. We reinforce that MLS participants and subscribers must not, and we may not enable the ability to filter out or restrict MLS listings that are communicated about offers of compensation. We can't do that today, but it's just a part of the practice changes that have to be implemented. And there's more, right? Requiring compensation disclosures to sellers as well as prospective sellers and buyers.
Bam, that's what you're talking about right there.
Right? You got to have disclosures saying
Yep.
what you're making, and you got to let them know. Which I mean, it's
Which you don't
disclosed
have today, but hopefully you have.
Well,
before
it's on the listing agreement. It's on the listing agreement. Sure, it is. You disclose, and it's on the closing documents. It's on the numbers when you guys review them. It's there. You know,
Well,
it's disclosed. I mean, it's
when
disclosed.
you say
on your,
you meaning like realtors that participate in
Yeah.
the stellar.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you disclose this anyway. People know what you're. I mean, I do. I don't know about other people. I mean, our agents that we do.
Right.
But I mean, that's just part of the process. I mean, you disclose it. I mean, it's when you go over the closing figures, and even beforehand, give them a rough estimate.
But you were saying that there are some documents you don't have in hand yet that.
Oh no, the actual
are part of-
documents that. Right. Well, the documents from FARBAR, like the Florida Association of Realtors and the bar,
Yep.
the ones we use for our contracts, they don't have the forms for the changes, like for this, to do this yet. So they're telling
Right.
us we must do this August 6th, but on what forms? We don't have the forms.
Right. How
It's-
many
it-
days is
it's-
that
it's
away? What's
Not
like
even
3
2
weeks?
3 weeks. Yep. So I don't know what's going on with that. We haven't.
Well,
there's
probably
nothing on it.
Probably those that are also watching this later. Philip has
Yeah.
the forms. He's rocking and rolling. He's
I
on
mean,
it.
it's name of the game. Yeah.
Right.
As everybody knows, I mean, I have the school, the brokerage. I've been doing this since I was 19 years old, man.
Yep.
I mean, long time. They're making it harder to do though. They're gonna eliminate 50% of the agents by this, because half the agents have a hard time writing a contract, man, really. And it's not because they're lazy, it's because nobody teaches them. And half the brokers don't even know what's happening here. I mean, I can't see
Yeah.
them being in business. I just don't see it. The business is changing.
You
And it's
really
gonna
have to
take
show
work.
value, right? I mean, if you're going to
Yeah,
have a buyer
yeah.
sign something, there's going to have to be some form of a value there for a
What buyer is
to-
going to sign an agreement with somebody for 6 months that they're going to represent them to buy a house and pay them because the listing agent and the seller's not paying them through buyer brokerage unless they negotiate it in the contract. So
and they're
you're
working
gonna
part
pay-
time,
and they're working part time,
in another job, or
Yeah.
Oh
How
my
are they going to
God.
even explain what they're
Interesting.
doing to the people? Like, you know what I mean? It's.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they're going to hurt the people in the industry. They're going to hurt the buyers and sellers, because we'll get into that as we go through here.
Right.
Everybody's hurt. Everybody's disadvantaged here. It really is. Really is.
Interesting.
I mean, listen, they make the rules. We play on the field. You know what I mean? So
Right.
let them make the rules. Capitalism always wins, buddy. Capitalism
Mhm.
always wins. So we'll find a way. We'll play with the rules and we'll still win. It's just they're going to eliminate a lot of the competition, which I'm kind of okay with in some regards. A lot of
Yeah.
people are in this business that shouldn't be.
Yeah, you're going to feed
and
it.
they
You're
may
going to
not
weed
like to
them
hear it.
out. Yeah.
By the end
weed
of the
them out.
year. But then again, the people who stay in it, it's going to get more expensive, because what's going to happen when the states lose all the license revenue? They're going to raise the license fees. What happens when the MLSs lose all the revenue coming in from the members? They're going to raise the membership fees. They're not going to take a cut. They're going to make it more expensive for the people in the business. That's just
Right.
capitalism, the way it works. They'll smile. They talk about fat pictures like the guy in this. Like, they don't care. They're still going to get their salaries at the end of the day. And what's going to happen is, I believe a lot of the MLSs will be consolidated. And that's just another, I mean, we'll see what happens as the business goes on. But they're changing they're changing the bones of the business. It's like a new DNA. And you're going to see that as we go on here.
Interesting to
Yep.
see it unfold. Wow.
And only people who made money on this are the lawyers. They got 200 million. The sellers and everybody else involved got 20 or 40 bucks each. That's it.
Oh
The
my
lawyers made
God.
the money. Yep.
Yeah.
And the lawyers are setting it up so they can come back and sue other people when they make mistakes and they violate things. So they're just going to keep making money on this for decades. So,
Wow.
but let's get back to it.
With a buyer to enter into a written agreement with a buyer prior to touring. That's a buyer brokerage agreement. Mary Jo's going to dig into that deeply.
Yep. We're
These
getting
are
to that
all
really
that
well here.
August 6th date. Remember that all of this has to happen and will happen on August 6th for Stellar participants and subscribers. With that, Mary Jo, I'm going to turn things over to you. I will drive the slides for you and I will mute myself. And
Thank you. Thank
Mary
you.
Jo.
And again, thank you so much, Jennifer, for all the good background. And thank you to all of you who are here. I've just been skimming the Q&A, and I just want to clarify for everyone that what we're talking about today are the changes that are going to impact you as far as the MLS goes. We are not NAR, so we can't answer questions about NARs.
There's another clarification coming to protect themselves here.
Strategy or what they did or didn't do. We are a realtor-owned regional MLS, as Jennifer mentioned, so we are bound to follow the rules and enforce them. But we, if you want to hear more about the nitty-gritty of the settlement, if you go to facts.realtor, you can read yourself silly on all of the background and the lawsuits and all of the decisions that were made. Okay, so let's
Read
get
yourself
started.
silly, Mark.
Excuse me. So the first rule is no offer of compensations on the MLS. And basically, I don't want to read this word for word for you, but the MLS cannot have any fields or allow any entry of any information that relates to compensation in our case, in Matrix. The use of our data feeds that you may get as brokers cannot be redirected to a third party to help establish a platform for compensation offers. So the MLS data and the MLS system cannot be used in any way to confer, to communicate offers of compensation as of August 6th. So we do have, go ahead to the next slide, Jen.
Wow. Interesting.
Crazy, right?
So we will be removing, as Jennifer said, all of the fields from the MLS on August 6th. And our new rules prohibiting that offer of compensation anywhere on the MLS is also will be into the system and will be enforced aggressively. And I'm going to say this just for a quick second. We, as Stellar, and that extended to all of you as our participants and subscribers, were covered under the NAR settlement. And what comes from that, our responsibility, and that's Stellar's responsibility and also yours, is to enforce the requirements that NAR has put into our system as a result of it. We have no choice. So please, please, please understand, no creativity, no secret.
You see how they're
tricks
walking
to try
around
to
this? You see what they're
communicate
doing?
what the compensation
Yeah, wow.
is. This in the MLS cannot, absolutely will not be used as a method or a workaround or anything for compensation. So please keep that in mind. We will have very aggressive enforcement as well.
Wow.
So what about your current listings? As a
Now this
excuse
is
me,
about
what-
current listings. I have many listings, and we need new forms to change them, and we still don't have the amendments and things like that either. So all of my current listings have to be signed off and rechanged for this by August 6th. So she's going
Wow.
to talk about current
You're going to be
listings now for-
busy. What, they're going to give you
Oh,
a
yeah,
week to
dude,
do
you
it
have
or
no idea.
something, or
Yeah.
2 weeks to do it?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. They're setting you up for failures. They're setting you up for fines. They're setting you up for license problems.
we're calling a broker action item. We'll need you and your agents to look at all of your active pending and TOM listings in your company and make sure that there is no reference in the text fields to compensation. So Stellar will remove the compensation fields, the variable rate commission fields, Any of the data that's in those fields, everything will be suppressed and removed. But anything in the text boxes, in the realtor remarks, in the public remarks, anywhere it could possibly be, cannot have any reference to compensation. And we have that for your active listings, your current listings, excuse me. Sorry about that. We need you and your agents to go in and remove everything in there before August 6th. And there is, in this case, no grace period for enforcement of this rule. So you're going to want to be absolutely certain that your listings are clean and have no reference anywhere.
Because they're going to come after you.
No tricks, no sneaky nothing. We'll be watching. Don't try to, we've heard all kinds of.
They're not even going to blink.
Ideas that agents are, because they're so creative. And I know this is hard to accept this change, but the fact is, it is here and we have to enforce it. So as much as we want to take a softer approach to this, because we are covered under the settlement, we have to enforce it, or we could put Stellar and all of you at risk. So please keep that in mind. And don't let anybody be creative about photos and putting something in a picture that has a percentage amount or anything. Nothing. What we will not tolerate. We just have to be that tough about this.
So interesting to see this thing unfold.
Telling you, man.
Okay.
This is what we
So
got.
notes on offers in current listings. What we're pulling here, and most of what you'll see here, is pulled directly from NAR. Because we're not, of course, a realtor association like your local association is, and we're not Florida realtors, and we're not lawyers. So what we're relying on are the facts that we're pulling from the FAQs from NAR, which again is on facts.realtor if you want to go look more. But basically what they're saying, if a contract is executed before our policy change on August 6th, then the buyer broker should be able to rely upon the offer of compensation, even if the closing occurs after that date, because it's an agreement, it's a signed. And Jeff, please pop in on this if you have anything to add.
That's an interesting
if the
thing.
sales
And
contract
wow,
is not executed before the date of the policy changes, and the offer, that the amount that you saw in the MLS may not be valid. So that's when you're going to have to start working
Interesting,
through
right,
the
Mark?
process and negotiating directly. So anything that's under contract should be fine. If it's not under contract on August 6th, you cannot rely on a printout that you saw from a month ago or something that had the compensation in it. You'll have to go forward and negotiate through the offer.
so it's
basically,
the sales contract is the defining grace
date.
period document.
Yeah. So you have to negotiate with them. The seller has to agree to pay the buyer through the contract or other terms, but can't come through the listing broker. Does that make any? It's just more paperwork.
like you
Now, listen,
truly,
and it has to be done. It has to be done before you show the property. So if you want to go show 10 properties, you got to make 10 phone calls, 10 commission, whatever documentation they want, agreed to before you show the property. So what happens when you're showing 20 properties? You got to make 20 phone calls, 20 documents, 20 agreements before you even look at it.
so
Yep, that's what they said.
Okay. So you're saying that I get that the a board owned MLS is regulated by NAR and these changes, but really it's like everybody is regulated, right? Because this is
Anybody who's in a realtor owned MLS, there's a bunch of them that aren't.
Well, I mean, antitrust goes to everybody though. We're just hearing about
not in this. It would if they sue them,
right? Okay.
And win. They didn't win this case. They settled. They laid down. They sold everybody out.
So if a buyer
I
and
don't
a
think they would have
seller
won the
later,
case. They wouldn't have won the case.
So if a buyer and a seller get under contract after the case, like, so, right, they get their buyer contract with their buyer, and then they later go under contract. Probably people will be watching this video after the deadline date. So now we're under contract. You can't put in the sales contract at all about the compensation. Like, my buyer wants the refrigerator and washer and dryer, let's say, and I need you to pay 3% to my buyer agent, or what, I don't know, X dollar amount.
They can't put it that way. They would have to say X percent whatever to pay prepaids and closing costs. They can't say commission. It can't be in the
Can't
contract.
use the word
commission.
commission.
Yep.
Interesting.
And if they think you're doing a workaround, they'll come after you. So even if you say prepaids and closing costs, they'll come after you. Technically. Can they? I don't know. Will they? I don't know.
It'll be interesting. Interesting to see it all unfold.
Anything before the 6th is okay. After the 6th is where you have a problem. But you can't even show that property without knowing or without a buyer agreement in place. You can't show it, even virtually. You'll see that in a minute.
Wow. So as lenders, then what we're going to receive from buyers is buyer
more
compensation agreement. A buyer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. More contributions that are generically stated on a sales contract, and buyer agreements with the buyer, a buyer compensation agreement with their buyer agent will come in separately than the sales contract or whatever.
Well, it depends how you may have to have that some kind of broker to broker agreement or seller to buyer agreement before they even look at the house. So that's going to be interesting, because you got to do it before. You can't do it after.
Wow.
So,
but afterwards, then, like you said, you would need to call 6 and get 6 different agreements if you're,
even if you're going to show them. It's going to be, I don't know how you could do it. Who's going to be a buyer's agent? Not me. I mean, I haven't been a buyer's agent for years anyway, but
so
you know what I mean?
Maybe initially it's going to make it way harder for buyers, really, because now they're going it's not going to be as organized for them. Maybe, I don't know.
It's going to make it harder for buyers. It's going to make it harder for buyers, documentation and seeing them wise. It's going to make them harder for them because they have to pay a fee if the seller doesn't want to pay.
Right.
A seller's going to list a house, and keep more money in their pocket. Why would they give it to a buyer's agent? They're going to say, no, pay for your own buyer's agent. They're going to get 5 offers. The one that says we'll pay is going to get the house.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting.
Right. Unless it's a buyer's market, because remember, everything's not just what people have experienced in the last few years. I mean,
when it becomes a buyer's market, that'll change.
Yeah, you and we've done real estate in when there's a ton of listings out there, like so many of them, and you have a buyer, and then every seller's running out of their front door and screaming, come see my house, please. Like what like that kind of market, how
we're getting there now.
Sellers gonna attract buyers, we're so interesting.
Yep. So I'm going to continue on here.
Jeff, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was in front of a group yesterday, and
now listen to this, man. Listen to this.
And a couple of things, and looking at the chat, and I'll get into it more later, but we're spending an awful lot of effort, and I'm not being critical of anybody. I get it. I'm still in the anger phase of the 7 stages of processing this, but myself, but as a group, we're the gatekeepers of this industry, and we have very creative, for lack of a better term, associates, but this is about the consumer, the buyer and the seller. And I get we're focused because we have to change our actions, but really the efforts of the DOJ, I don't think it was necessary, but they do. And the DOJ and the courts, this is about transparency. This is about the buyer and the seller. The contract is between the buyer and the seller. We're ancillary to it. So yes, you have a legally binding agreement between 2 parties. And as part of that, you have other rules that allow for compensation. But prior to the policy change, great. After the policy change, switch. But if you wait until the last second, you're going to have confusion. So I would urge everybody to embrace the opportunity we have in the next 39 days. With Stellar, it's a few days less, but let's start implementing now. And working our way through it, because it's going to take time to get used to this.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you
point.
very much. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, guys. So let's talk about, this is not part of the NAR mandated rule changes that have come from the settlement. This is an opportunity that has been offered through the settlement and through that to NAR to us. So there is a new opportunity for a rule on concessions. So before I start talking about concessions, I want to say again, concessions is not a replacement for compensation.
So they're setting up a concessions box saying, hey, the seller is willing to pay 2% to, concessions, or 3% or 4% or 5%, whatever. So listen to this. They're setting the box up so you can use it, but they're telling you not to use it. It's crazy.
So if let's say as a
Well,
lender,
no.
right? Wait, if you don't mind, Philip. So a scenario all the time, you got a first time home buyer. There's a lot more of them out in the kind of the market right now than there ever really has been. Statistically, it seems. They need seller help. Let's say their number is they need 4%, so that way they can get the rate they need for their debt to work out, whatever it is. Just hypothetically, but it ranges from 0 to who knows what. But like, let's just say for our scenario is 4, and then the buyer broker agreement has X. So can the seller, can they put in there, the seller offer, hey, I'm going to give you 4% plus X? Like they could say some higher number, like 10%.
No. Well, listen,
10%.
The listing agreement states what the seller's paying the selling broker, the listing broker. That's not going anywhere. That doesn't have to go into contract at all. Contract has nothing to do with that. That's from the seller and the broker, right? The listing broker. The listing agreements currently have an amount, and then you also say what you're going to pay the buyer broker. It's disclosed at the time of signing the listing agreement. Okay, that is going away. Changing. We don't have them yet. So now a listing agreement is going to just say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're charging you X, whatever you negotiate, and you're going to get that at closing just the same as you do now. The only thing that changes is at closing, the buyer broker gets nothing unless it's on the contract, or the buyer broker has an agreement with the buyer who's paying them. That's it.
So you can put it on the So you can put it on the contract.
You could put on the contract buyer, and you can't put about the commission. Nothing about the commission.
Oh, they said concession.
All you can do is that the buyer and seller agree that the seller will pay 2, 3, 4% towards of the sale price towards the buyer's closing costs and prepaids. What are the buyer's closing costs and prepaids? All their closing costs and prepaids and their buyer commission. You would think, right?
And the buyer agent commission. Got it.
That would
So
be
basically, they're replacing
prepaids.
So that, but concession box was never in the MLS before, was it?
Correct.
Okay, so what they're doing in a sense is, or Stellar is replacing the buyer compensation box wording probably, and just saying it's concession.
But listen what they're telling you. You can't use it as a commission. Listen what they're saying.
Yeah, no, I hear what they're saying, but like clear, and everybody has to follow the law and what's going on and reduce liability. Yep. So I get why everyone's doing it. They'd have to, and but
the thing is, other MLSs aren't going to have concession boxes. That's just what they're doing. You see what I'm saying? Everybody's doing something different. It's not the same rule. It's not the same on the whole landscape. This is opening yourself up.
Okay, wait. So let's say just you're in a price point, like you're a listing agent, you're in a price point, the house is in like an FHA price point, and the maximum a seller concession you can get is 6%.
Correct.
Is for their closing costs, where they could use it to buy down rate, or all these things. FHA has said that the seller can additionally pay on top of that for the buyer broker fee, and it's not part of that 6%. So basically, some listing agents are going to put like whatever 6 plus X, because they already know that 6 can go towards
this field. From what I understand, this field isn't going to be numeric. It's going to be yes, no, or blank.
Oh,
so they're going to pay. From what I understand,
be a number there.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's not going to be numeric. It's going to be either yes, you are, no, you're not, or blank. If you leave it blank, that would maybe leave it open, right, for discussions, right? If you say no, it's no. If the seller says, listen, I'll pay you X% to sell it, but I'm not paying the buyer broker a penny. You put no in there. Now, what's that going to do? Less people are going to want to buy that property, I guess, right? But technically, as an agent, you can't swing away from it because you have to show them every property. That would be steering. Then now you got another problem, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just another.
So really, it drives
antitrust.
So it drives every buyer just to put whatever it is that their situation in life, if they have a
Correct.
buyer amount of X or X plus one or whatever, they're going to put that in there plus their buy. So, okay. So everything is now just going towards the contract negotiation to figure it out.
Right. Now, what about this? What if you're a listing agent? Well, here's the problem I have. If you're an educated buyer, right, after this goes through and a couple people get screwed over and pay, right? If you're an educated buyer and you want to see 5 houses, why wouldn't you just call the 5 listing agents, go see the house, let them be a transaction broker, write up the contract if you want to buy one, take it to a lawyer, review it for $500 instead of paying 2-3% to a buyer's agent to buy a $500,000 house, which is 10 or 15 grand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but like a lot of people don't have that kind of time, organization. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the
for 10 or 15 grand. You ain't gonna get it.
Yeah, I suppose
I would. So
they go to your school, Philip. You could have a buyer school of exactly what to do.
They come to my school for their license.
For that. Yeah,
they come to my school for their license and to get their sales license or their broker license. They join my brokerage and go through my apprenticeship to learn how to make real money. There's a difference.
There,
you know.
Yes, be the professional.
Yep. And the thing is, buyer agents are under attack. I'm telling you, between the market shifting, between these rules, between you can't show a property without, I think a lot of them are going to be out of business by December. Mark my words, man. Because it's too much. It's too much. It's hard for me to explain it. I get tired of explaining over. Just in the last 3 days, I had to explain to 4 buyers that didn't understand. And they're all signing agreements.
Right.
You know, but I'm tired of talking about it. That's why I'm making this video and I'm going to give it to them to see. Because you want to buy a house, you want to work with me, watch this video. This is why you got to sign this.
This is the first time I'm seeing it be rolled out. I mean, it helps me understand what I'm going to see.
This was July. They did this July 9th. And there's still more coming out. I have 2 more of these. This was stellar. I have Beaches and I have Real MLS doing the same thing in the next couple of days.
Oh, wow.
So I just got to go by their schedule. I can't do it on my own. So now I'm going to compare NAR to this, and I'm going to compare Beaches to this.
Yeah.
And I may do more videos. Because this one is on Stellar, and then maybe I'll do one with the differences from this one to the other one, so people know. Because
very informative. You should.
Yeah. And there's agents in different MLSs. I have agents in all MLSs. So I got to know each one, what they're doing, what their rules are. You know, now I'm taking a risk. If one of them mess up, it's on me too. Now, what does that do to a broker like me? Is it worth having agents? That's the next question. Is it worth having agents? Because if my agent does something wrong, I can have problems. Why do I want those problems in my life? You know?
Right.
Now think about the big brokers. You know, your big brokers that have thousands of agents. What's going to happen to them when these agents go do whatever they want? You know?
Wow.
So it's kind of crazy, right? But let's get back to it. Because this is nothing. Wait till you start getting into the broker agreements. Hold on.
Wow.
Most likely that we have currently have a field for concessions on the closing side. This will be a new field that is optional.
Hold on. They do have closing. They do have a field when you close the deal if there were concessions involved, because appraisers use that. So if there was concessions, you got to say, hey, there was, 2% concession. You know, it'll say there's a 2% concession or a 1% concession, because when the appraisers value the properties, they take that into account when they're doing it. I got a little reverb or something coming from you, Mark, like music or something. I don't know if it's on my end or.
No, sorry.
Okay. So there is a concession on the seller side for when there's concessions. That's what she's talking about now.
Listing side, where concessions to the buyer, if the seller chooses to offer those, can be entered into the system. It's optional, but if it's used, the concessions may not be limited to or conditioned upon retention of or payment to a cooperating broker. or any other broker representative. So misuse of this concessions field will result in an automatic fine. We'll talk a little bit later on the fines, but understand that because all of these changes are coming through NAR, they're mandatory, and they put us at risk if we don't enforce them from the plaintiffs. We will be very aggressive in enforcing these rules as well. So let's talk a little bit more about concessions. First of all, I will say too that there are a lot of, this is an MLS choice. MLSs have the option of whether or not they want to add seller concessions to the buyer type field. Stellar's board of directors has approved this field, and it will go into effect on July 23rd, later this month. The field is going to be a yes/no field, and it's going to be
Yes, no.
optional. Again, I say optional at every
Wow,
corner. And
interesting.
to all of you as brokers, please be thoughtful and consider how you want your agents to deal with this as we move forward after July 23rd, because this is totally up to your discretion. In our opinion, the broker should be deciding if you want to offer concessions, if you want to use that field. If you choose yes or no, that will go, it's just a yes or no field. That's an option. You can leave it blank. You can commit nothing. You can just leave it blank and continue on. If you say yes,
I'm going to speed it up a little bit because they're going too slow.
It is, there will be an auto-filled comment that goes into the remarks that the seller will consider concessions in the price when an offer is submitted. It's a simple statement basically saying that the seller will consider concessions. As another option following that, if you choose.
I mean, having that field saying yes, at least lets them know they can ask for it in the offer, right? If you say no, they can't. Yes, they can. If it's blank, they may, right? So if you say yes, they may offer it. At least they know they can put it in the offer saying we want something, right?
But if somebody wanted to, it doesn't matter what the MLS says. They could still ask for it,
absolutely,
regardless of the button and the MLS is clicked, right? Okay.
Absolutely. But for me, I'm leaving it blank because the minute you say yes, it's a workaround, dude. They can come after you. They can say you're violating the law.
Oh,
right. Because if I say yes, it's telling them, hey, yeah, you can do this. I'm leaving it blank because it doesn't say no, but it doesn't say yes, right?
Wow.
But that's, why would you open yourself up to that? Why would you even put it in there if they're so worried about it,
Right.
A dollar or percentage amount of the sales price that will be dedicated to concessions. And again, the concessions field cannot be conditioned upon.
So you can't put how much. You can't say percent. You can't say any of that. It's a violation. But if you say yes, you're alluding to that, I think.
Using that concession amount only to compensate the buyer broker. So here's another broker action item for you. Please consider creating an office policy for how your agents should handle concessions. This will be, I think, very helpful as a new change for you to give them the direction that how you would like your company to deal with this. And remember, again, it's completely optional. You can leave it blank. You can say no. You can say yes, and you can add the amount if you choose.
My policy is blank.
Wow.
That's it. That's my policy.
Yeah.
100% optional every step of the way. It's totally your decision. In our opinion, in our mind, we feel that this is a brokerage choice to make. Jeff, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and I think concessions have been part of real estate for God knows how long. And they're normal, extraordinary, not extraordinary at all. And obviously the lender may have some opinions on the buy side about the magnitude.
That's because you're limited to what you can get, right? You can only go so much in concessions on the lending side. That's what he's talking about there.
To the concession. Right. There has been some stuff come out relative to the VA, relative to the FHA, and what how they're looking at it from Fannie and Freddie. But ultimately, let your offer do the talking, and then it's a negotiable item, and that includes general concessions, whether that be prepaids or closing costs or whatever, as well as if you have a buyer who can't fulfill a payment to the buyer representative, that would be something that the seller may consider. And you can condition that in the offer that the buyer makes, as far as presenting it in front of the seller for the seller to make an informed decision. And again, I think that hits upon the transparency that the seller fully understands how monies are being spent at closing, because we all know the buyer has been paying real estate fees in the price they pay for their home. So ultimately, it just clarifies things a little bit better, and is more transparent for them to do it inside your offer that goes back and forth, and then you reach final acceptance, then you close. I think that's the thing to hold in the back of our heads. It's not code word for commission.
Got it.
Or compensation.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Alrighty. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, what do we have next? A little bit more. We're hammering this home because it's so important. Concessions are not a replacement for the compensation fields and cannot be conditioned upon solely the use for buyer's broker compensation. It is not a blanket unilateral offer. Concessions have to be negotiated. There's no guarantee. It's just an offer, which is contrary to how we've done business in the past with compensation being unilateral. If you saw it in the MLS, that was part of what you could count on being paid. That is completely now, will be gone on August 6th. Concessions are between the seller and the buyer, not between the listing broker and the buyer's broker. Very important to keep that in mind. And again, it's not required in any way. Sellers do not need to offer concessions. And again, we ask that you all, as brokers, consider how you want to handle concessions in your office, because if they call seller, we're not going to be able to help them. We're not going to be able to advise them on how to fill that out. All we'll be able to do is basically refer everybody to the FAQs or refer them back to you. Talk to your broker, see how your broker would like you to handle this. So if you have those policies in place, it will help everybody, I think, be less confused with all this change coming forward.
Wow.
Alrighty.
Mark, I got
Now
that
we're gonna talk about
reverb. There's that
database.
reverb again, man.
And
I don't know
what
if
is
it's coming from
allowed.
your side or what.
And basically what's not allowed. And first of all, when I talk about data feeds, I want to define that for you. This would be your IDX feed for your websites or for your agent sites. This would be your back office feed that you get from Stellar MLS, or a feed that you get of your listings that you use to distribute throughout other places. If it comes from Stellar, it's an MLS data feed, and we do not prohibit the settlement. And basically the new rules is probably a better way to look at this. The rules do not prohibit brokers from making offers of compensation on their own listings, on their own websites. This is another option that you will need to consider as a broker. There will be no compensation information in the data feeds as of August 6th. So that you will not receive that data anymore. If you choose to add it to your website on your listings only, so your IDX site, your listings only, or comment on your website, that is completely up to you. And just be sure to think that through, how you want to handle that, because there can be no references to this. If you do create something on or add this to your site, you can't put in the Realty remarks, check out our website for compensation. You cannot have any comments or any mention, including one of those. I saw one of the FAQs questions saying, can we say buyer broker friendly? No, that's insinuating that you will pay compensation to the buyer broker, and that cannot be in the MLS. You can put whatever you choose on your website, and just be thinking very carefully about how you want to handle that. You may augment MLS data feeds currently, just like you do now, with offers of compensation to, again, you can augment your feed with your data, only for your listings. You cannot use your data. You cannot give it to a third party. You cannot share it. Your agent.
Third parties can't congregate listings and say there's commissions on them. Like that's what, like, you can't use your feed. You can't say a post.
Right.
You can't put a post with a commission and have it lead back to your feed. It's a violation. It's crazy.
Wow.
And the same cannot take their IDX feed or instruct their vendor who gives them the IDX feed to go ahead and give this feed of all Stellar data, give it to this vendor over here, and they're going to create a platform that we can all create. We can all put in what our compensation is going to be to each other. You cannot use the MLS data in any way to facilitate something along those lines. And this is a very, very serious from NAR as well, is if a broker uses or allows, even unknowingly, the MLS data to be used to create a platform that has offers of compensation, it will result in termination of your company. And that,
Knowingly or unknowingly, you will be
Wow.
terminated from the MLS. You're out of business.
Wow.
that is huge. That's not just you, that's your entire company, all of your agents, because the rules from NAR say that we have to immediately terminate from access to any MLS data.
And guess what? As soon as you do that, the DOJ and the lawyers are coming after you.
So that was
Wow.
also a matrix. So please be very diligent about that. And again, as if you choose to show compensation on your website for your listings, you can absolutely do that. But you cannot reach out to other brokers and gather theirs and create a platform. Anything that uses MLS content cannot be used to create a
How
platform.
about that one, man?
So please keep that in mind.
Wow.
It doesn't mean that
You weren't joking.
Jeff went
They
to say-
bring in the hammer.
And it's not just this MLS. It's all, this is everyone, because it's coming from NAR. It's not just them. It's everyone. They have no choice. They're just the enforcers. You know, they're the tax man come knocking. That's who these people are. They're the ones collecting it. They're the ones enforcing it. They're just, you know, they put them in that space to do that. And they have to enforce it, because if they don't rat you out and do this,
Crazy.
they're going to get sued. And it's
Right.
like a tell on your neighbor, you know, not that's what it is, you know. Your neighbor had people over for Thanksgiving during COVID. Call your neighbor, you know, it's the same thing. Rat Nation.
Let me just finish my thought, and then I will ask you for your feedback too. There are, and Jennifer alluded to this earlier, there are some platforms popping up here and there that are saying, hey, put your listings on here and you can say what your compensation is going to be. We have no stance on that except to say you cannot use your MLS content to feed that site if you choose to participate. So if there's a platform that develops out there that you as a broker want to participate in, understand that you cannot use the MLS data. You would have to manually enter your listing information into that platform. It could not be coming from the MLS, otherwise you'd be violating the rules and regulations and the intent of the settlement, and it would be really tough. So Jeff, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I'm going to offer. I know people. There's massive amounts of people that are contemplating putting it on their own websites, and I'm going to offer a scenario for you that scares the living daylights out of me. So okay, you put it on your website, and then your agent starts sharing links and feeds and Facebook or fake book, as Mike McGraw calls it, and then it starts expanding. Then you got links being added to other links, and all of a sudden you have something that looks sort of like trying to get completely around the settlement terms. And one of the phrases in the settlement agreement, and if you haven't read it, I would urge you to either read it or get with an attorney who has read it. It's the unilateral offer of compensation that really seems to be one of the drivers behind this. Meaning it doesn't matter if the agent is a good agent on the buy side and did a good job, but it's this blanket, yep, if you do it, you get paid. I think that really is part of what has driven people crazy, and the accusations. And ultimately, I personally am trying to get people to encourage people, let's move beyond the figuring out how to work around this thing, and let's figure out how to embrace it and say, okay, fine, let my offer do the speaking for me. Let my agent represent the buyer, let my agent represent the seller, and let those two people represent their client, and then put the offer in the middle, reach a ratified contract, and close the contract, and stop agitating, arguing, because at the end of the day, the DOJ is going to win, and they're already contemplating additional actions. Or what?
The DOJ is going to win. You can't beat them, man. They regulate themselves. When they appeal to themselves. So it's just what it is. There's a comment here about it's too risky to join the MLS, and it's not about being risky. Without the MLS, you can't list, and you don't know what's for sale. They control it. They control the information. They own it. So without the MLS, it just, how do you list property and how do you tell people it's for sale? And once you go back to like 1975 and you have books in your office, I mean, it's not an option at this point. You know, you have to use that system. I mean, you have to. That's the only platform you have to market it and put it out there. You create your own, you're talking millions of dollars. I mean, millions of dollars.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't need to really, because all that's going away is the part that you're offering to a buyer. I mean, you're going to use the MLS for everything you normally would do it. I mean, the infrastructure of the MLS is already established in all these brokers' websites. It's just all about follow the rules. Okay, it's not in there anymore, and then every buyer is going to need to do whatever you said with these agreements, and then we're going to just deal with it at contract.
But that's what you have to do. Yeah.
I mean, it's like we got to deal with that anyways on when we need a washer and dryer and they don't have one and they like theirs, you know, or
Yeah. Well, it's
seller
just complicating
concession.
everything. It's more work and it's more explaining. It's just complicating everything. It's going to make it harder to do business.
Yeah.
Harder.
Yeah,
That's
it's gonna
all.
make it's gonna weed out the part-timers more, because they're
Yeah.
gonna have to really have a hard conversation. I'm a part-timer, I work at some other company, and oh yeah, here, sign this agreement with me to pay me. You
Yeah,
know,
that you're
like,
going to represent, and I'm going to
buyers are
represent
gonna
you
be
for
like,
6 months.
what? Wait, I want to go with the best professional who's gonna work
That's what's going to
hard
happen.
for, you know, yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
So now he said the DOJ will always win. He said that. Remember that.
Yeah, he did.
Watching what we do by the minute. And if it's not them, it's some plaintiff attorney or somebody that wants to make.
So he's saying the DOJ is going to be watching, and the attorneys are going to be watching because they're going to make examples of the people who mess up, and they're going to sue the shit out of them, basically.
For themselves and get rich. And we
They're
are
gonna
a
get
sitting
rich.
duck if we keep anguishing over this instead of
They are
embracing this. So I urge the brokers in the room to seriously sit down and talk to their legal counsel and figure out the position they want to make. And then make sure your agents, even if you have to release a 30 or $40 million producer who refuses to embrace this idea,
You hear this?
they're going to get you sued. So
You hear
I'm
this?
passionate about this. I am concerned because, as you know, you can't control everybody.
I'm gonna go back a couple seconds. I want you to listen to this whole bit from this guy again.
Figure out the position they want to make instead of embracing. And at the end of the day, my agent represent, and let's figure out how to embrace it. Yep, if you do it, you get paid. I think that really is part of what has
I'm gonna play
driven
this part again.
people crazy, and the accusations. And ultimately, I personally am trying to get people to encourage people. Let's move beyond the figuring out how to work around this thing, and let's figure out how to embrace it and say, okay, fine, let my offer do the speaking for me. Let my agent represent the buyer. Let my agent represent the seller, and let those two people represent their client, and then put the offer in the middle, reach a ratified contract, and close the contract, and stop agitating, arguing, because at the end of the day, the DOJ is going to win. And they're already contemplating additional actions or watching what we do by the minute. And if it's not them, it's some plaintiff attorney or somebody that wants to make a name for themselves and get rich. And we are a sitting duck if we keep anguishing over this instead of embracing this. So I urge the brokers in the room to seriously sit down and talk to their legal counsel and figure out the position they want to make. And then make sure your agents, even if you have to release a 30 or $40 million producer who refuses to embrace this idea, they're going to get you sued. So I'm passionate about this. I am concerned because, as you know, you can't control everybody at every minute of every day. But if we don't get control of this as brokers, which is our job in this state, we are the gatekeeper. If we don't get control of this, we're going to be spending more money on legal actions than we will on how to market our properties better. That's my opinion.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like good advice.
Thank you. Yes, we're all really
Yeah.
passionate about this. And it's just through all of the Q&A that I'm just kind of been scamming through.
Watch this.
There's just so many questions and so many what ifs, but Jeff's right. It's here. We have no choice. It's not an option. And we do really need your help in making sure that your agents also embrace this to protect.
So it's a serious question. Do you want to have agents? Like, how do you got a producer 30 million, they're going to get you sued. The guy just said it. They don't follow this. They show a house without a permit or without a broker agreement, buyer broker agreement. They're going to get you sued. They're going to get you put out of business. You know, is it worth it? What's going to happen to these big brokers, man?
But what, like, so I mean, there's other things you in your class, you talk about all these things that are if they did wrong, the broker could get in trouble for too. This is just adding one more, right? So
well, this is blanket, dude. This is like just a matter of time because you know somebody's going to do it. You know somebody's going to take somebody to a house without an agreement.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you kidding me? They're showing a house to their friend. Come on, let's go see it. You know, their friend tells another agent who they're working. They took me here at this time to go see this house. And then the MLS calls you and says, where's your buyer broker agreement for this showing? And you don't have it. That's as fast as it happens, man.
Wow.
Ding, ding, ding. You're out of business.
Wow.
You kidding me?
And the broker is too, right? Because it's
Yeah.
that's what you're meeting is
That's what I'm
like,
saying.
I was
Yeah.
just showing a friend this house real fast, and now,
You know what I'm contemplating? I'm contemplating not representing buyers at all unless they're buying my listing. That's what I'm contemplating.
Wow.
My company does not work with buyers. The only buyers we work with is if you're buying my listing. My company does listings only.
Right.
That's what I'm really contemplating.
Wow.
Yeah,
Or there might be a
95
very organized, I mean, there are organized buyer teams, and you do a great job with it with your agents that you've trained,
But I'm just saying it's not worth the risk. I work too hard, my reputation, my business, my school, my brokerage, to have anybody out there with an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, you
That's my
definitely need
dilemma.
you need more professionals for sure. It can't just be everybody, I'm just getting a real estate license. Like, no, you got to probably interview them, make sure you trust them as a broker. Like they're going to follow the rules and not put you in.
Yeah, I mean, in a policy procedure manual, they're going to get I'm debating $10,000 fine, and I have the right to sue them, like for whatever I'm sued.
Yeah, wow. I guess the lenders had to do the same risk with us loan originators. I mean, we are out in the field every day with massive amounts of regulation and we're like, we got to do trainings like literally every couple weeks on the laws, where we have our continuing education that is astronomically tons of like multiple days if you're in different states or multiple states. Yeah.
And see, that's the thing I got too. I got Tennessee and I got North Carolina, and they're opposite. Like North Carolina is different anyway, but Tennessee's coming out with all their things, and everybody's doing things differently. It's just making it harder to do business. Like it's making everything harder.
Right.
So let's get back to it. We're almost a little over half.
Okay. Somebody had mentioned, I just want to comment because it was about the data in the Q&A. So I've asked that if you put compensation on your brokerage site, does that mean it can't be in the MLS? And I wasn't really quite sure of that, but what we're saying here is if you have an IDX feed on your website, or even on your own website where you feature just your internal listings, you can add compensation if it's on your listing. That is not a violation. It's not a problem. It just makes sure that it's only your listings at a broker that you are adding compensation to, that you're not accumulating the same from any other website. It's fine if it's your listings and that you're offering compensation. What you don't want to do is put any links in the comments that will take the agent who's looking at that, like in the realtor remarks, to your website to see the compensation. That would not be acceptable in the MLS. To put a link in your comments to see your website that shows compensation would be a violation of the rules. So please be very careful about that. The whole picture here is the MLS is no longer your vehicle in any way to offer compensation to a buyer's broker. That has to be completely outside of Matrix in our case. Alrighty, let's keep going.
Yeah, I understand it. I understand.
Yep.
So again, we're still talking about misuse of the data here. And I know we're saying this all several times, but we want to make sure that everybody's really clear on this, that the MLS cannot allow you to use your data feeds to create a platform. And you cannot allow a third-party vendor that you work with, you cannot give them the data feed or sell them the data feed or whatever it might be to create a platform. That MLS data cannot be used in any way by you as a broker, by any vendor that you have to create.
Hey, real quick, I just got a message here from Christina. Christina, you're right, exactly. That's coming up. Stay tuned, because there's a section right after this about the compensation prior to showing, and we're going to talk about that. We just haven't gotten there yet. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's creating a lot of work, a lot of extra. It's going to be crazy. There's going to be a lot of things we have to do, and it must be done and documented, because if they contact you and they want a copy of it, you have to give it to them instantly or you're in violation. And that's going to open you up to being sued. The DOJ and the lawyers from the case are going to come after individual agents and their brokers. You're going to be fined from the broker, from the broker, the MLS, and you and the broker can be banned and removed from the MLS forever, and you're basically out of business. So it's going to be insane. That's what we're talking about. That information's a little while ago. I don't know if you caught it, but it's all in here. So this is going to be a great video to reference as you go forward. Let's get back to it.
A platform to communicate compensation to other brokers. Cannot be done unless it's only on your own website. So hopefully that's making sense. Huge caution. Please be very diligent about this, because ultimately this comes back to you as a broker. And even if one of your agents does it and you don't know about it, you could be endangering the entire company as far as access to the
You see, they're repeating that. Like if an agent
and
gives a
let me
lead,
just add the last bullet here.
a feed
If
to
we
somebody,
find
it comes
out about a
back to you.
vendor, even if it didn't come from you, but let's say 20 of you use the same vendor, and one broker gave out the data, and we find out that company is misusing our data, we will shut off their data feed, which will also impact any other customers that vendor has. So again,
Isn't that crazy? They'll shut the vendor, like Zillow. If Zillow does it, they'll shut Zillow down, they're saying.
Right.
Crazy, right?
so important that we have to embrace this totally as an MLS to continue to satisfy the requirements of the rules and the settlement. Okay, this one is one that's causing a whole lot of questions. And first of all, I just want to say out loud that, again, you are all the experts in real estate, and we are the MLS, and we're not attorneys, and we can't answer every one of your questions of what might be coming through, but we want to share what the new rule in general is. So the first part is you must disclose to sellers that compensation is not set by law and is fully negotiable. And that's always been the case, but now it's being mandated that it be somewhere, that you disclose that somewhere. Maybe it's in your listing agreement, wherever it might be. You'll need to disclose and clearly discuss with your sellers how compensation works, that it's fully negotiable, and all of those important key transparency issues with your sellers. And also any payments or offer of payment that the listing participant or the seller will make to another broker or agent or representative. Again, this is something that you talk about with your seller. Do you want to compensate a buyer brokerage? How would you like to do that? All of these has to be disclosed to your seller to make sure that they're very clear on how it's going to work. So that's on the seller side.
So that's what you're saying. We need, you guys need the contracts drafted, listing agreements updated.
That has to be done before you show the property. That's even before they may not even like the property, but you have to do that with everyone before you show the property. Do you know how much time in it? Like, you understand that? That's crazy. But let's go.
So now let's talk about the buyer side. And this is a very major change for all of you. And we totally.
This is what Christine is referencing about. You have to have a buyer broker agreement signed prior to showing. We talked about this earlier in the video, but this is getting into the details of it now. So you got to pay attention here, because if you show a property without a agreement signed, you're basically risking your license. You're risking DOJ and lawyers coming after you, and you're risking being banned for you and your brokerage, and then everything from the actual MLS that you're part of.
The hammer.
Crazy. There we go.
Totally understand that this is so disruptive. And again, disruption only happens to the unprepared, but even being prepared, I know this is going to be a challenge. We are clearly 100% aware of that. And again,
I mean, they're acknowledging it. It's going to be a challenge. You know, a lot of agents can't even explain this process. They're going to have to explain the process, get an agreement signed for representation, and the buyer is going to have to agree to that term with them, the terms, before they can open a door, and before they can even virtually show a property. You can't virtually show it without this, which is really, it's going to hurt a lot of people in this business. It's going to eliminate a lot of people in this business.
Not trying to hide behind anything, but we are mandated to enforce this. So when do you need a buyer agreement? And I know most of you know this as a BBA, so I'll probably mention that. Oh, speaking of acronyms, I saw a question earlier. What does DOJ stand for?
That's fun. Listen to this. This is funny. And you know how I'm saying what we're dealing with? People that can't write contracts? Just listen to this.
Most of you know this as a BBA, so I'll probably
listen
mention that. Oh, speaking of acronyms, I saw a question earlier. What does DOJ stand for? And that is DOJ stands for the Department of Justice.
Who doesn't know what the DOJ is? When a guy said the DOJ always wins. Like, that's what we deal with every day. That kind of people.
Right.
Like, What's the DOJ? Okay.
What is the department that's going to hurt me?
When
Yeah. Who's the one behind all this? Right. What's the DOJ? You know, maybe they should quit now. Whoever that was.
Jeff was referring to.
And that's a broker. That's a broker, not an agent. That's a broker, because they're all brokers in this, right? That we're watching.
Right.
Yeah, okay. What's the DOJ?
The Department of Justice. Okay, so let's go back to this. When a buyer agreement.
Why was she even embarrassed? Purpose.
When someone in your brokerage provides services to a buyer, such as identifying properties, arranging for a tour, negotiating on behalf of a buyer, or writing and presenting offers. So the definition.
Now she says identifying potential properties. Does that mean before we do a property search, we have to? Probably.
Wow.
Right? If you're identifying properties, that means if you're talking to a client, you're going to do a property search for them. That's identifying properties, correct?
Yeah, I guess so, right?
You need it before you even show a list of properties. Honestly, that's what it says here.
Terms of agreement on a website where they have to click the button. Do they have to?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
When the buyer and the agent or the agent from the brokerage working with the buyer physically enter a home. So before you take your buyers or your agents take a buyer to see a property, there has to be a BBA in place. Also, it applies if you're doing a virtual showing.
Virtual showings.
The same thing applies. If the agent is working with the buyer and they enter the home, the agent does to do a live virtual tour to a buyer that isn't there, that qualifies. Now, we're not talking about looking at a video of the MLS, of the property. We're talking about actually showing a property either in person or virtually to a potential buyer. And a home, in this case, this is very important to keep in your mind because we are seeing a lot of questions about this. When is a buyer-broker agreement needed? When it's a home, not for commercial, not for anything else, a residential property of 1 to 4 dwelling units. That's the only time.
Not residential land, only when it's 1 to 4 residential
property.
Good that they define that.
Again, this is a mandatory implementation that will go into effect on August 6th. So let's go ahead to the next slide, Jen. So they're in the excuse me, Florida. I know that you're all aware that Florida Realtors is working on forms. I also know that many of you like to create your own forms. You have your own legal counsel on staff or that you hire out and you want to create your own forms. So these are the requirements that must be in any BBA that you use. And it can be, again, this is another broker checklist. How do you want your agents to handle this? Which forms do you want them to use? But these 4 key terms must be in any agreement that you use. And guess who it has to enforce this? The MLS does. So please be sure, review carefully everything. If you create your own, if you use someone else's form, these are the 4 things that must be in the BBA. Specific and conspicuous disclosure of the amount or the rate of compensation that the buyer broker will receive. The amount of compensation in a manner that is objectively ascertainable and not open-ended. So one of the things that I picked up from some of the NAR presentations that I've been on is you must put an amount here. It can be however you want to do it, a percentage, it can be a dollar amount, but it cannot say whatever the seller will offer or whatever the best I can get, the maximum we can get. None of that. It has to be very specific wording where then you fill this in. This must be in a BBA. A term or section that prohibits the participant, again, we're talking about the buyer broker here, from receiving compensation for brokerage service from any other source that exceeds the amount or the rate agreed to in the agreement with the buyer. Again, if you negotiate, your agents negotiate with the buyer for X%, and then when you make the offer, you find out that the seller will pay Y%. You cannot get more than what you put in that agreement. And I'm sure there's a legal way that you can amend it with the permission of the buyer, but you cannot, that's why it has to be so specific. You cannot count on any other sources that would pay you more than what is in your BBA. And a conspicuous statement that broker fees and commissions are not set by law and are fully negotiable. This is the same that you saw on the seller side. Commissions are negotiable, but the idea here is to educate buyers and sellers on all of this. These are the absolute must-haves. And they don't have to be worded exactly like this, but they must conspicuously have all of these statements in a BBA, whichever one you use. And why is that important?
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Because
it
the
has to be
MLS
done
has to
prior,
enforce it. So first of all,
right? It has to be done prior to showing virtually or even identifying properties is what they say. Now she said showing,
Right.
walking through the door or showing virtually. However, there's a reason they put identifying. Could they come back and say identifying later? It's going to be interesting.
please, don't start sending us your BBAs. We are not going to require you to submit BBAs.
Yeah, they don't want them. They only want them if there's a problem, but you'll see.
But like, wait, they said that we have to enforce it. I've
They have
never
to
heard of.
enforce it.
I know, but like, that's just weird. Like, why?
I don't know.
Like, okay, so they said earlier that they're not allowed to do anything with commission, but yet
Right.
they got to enforce agreement that is only about commission.
Yeah, again, representation. Well, representation. They're probably saying representation and commission.
I think maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but like they need to regulate. Nobody talks about commission, buyer commission.
Well, no, this is where
in
you
the
have
MLS.
to. Well, that's in the MLS. This is the agreement where an agent is representing a buyer.
Right, and this is outside of the MLS though. But like, so all they're gonna enforce, all they're really talking about enforcing is the fact that nobody can put anything inside the MLS that points to another place to get around, like advertising. Hey, I'm offering X dollar.
Yeah, no,
amount.
this has nothing to do with the listing now. This is the buyer side. This is when you're representing a buyer.
Right. I'm just
so you have to negotiate. But on that document, when you're representing a buyer, you must have how much you're charging them on it. 1%, 2%, 3%, 10%, whatever. You have to have that on there before you show houses. Either they're paying you or the listing, the seller is paying you if you can negotiate it. But either way, it has to be there.
But I'm just trying to wrap my brain around how does a MLS that is not the association, it's not NAR, going to be the one to enforce a buyer agreement that's about commission. I think I'm misunderstanding it. Maybe
they're enforcing you have it. They're enforcing you have it, not the legality of it. Like, so for example, if something comes up and you don't have it, they're going to have to report it. They're going to enforce it and they're going to report it. They're going to be like the policeman. They're going to charge you and then you're going to go in front of a court, right? A lawyer, they're going to be the police basically.
Wow. It'll be interesting to see this unfold. Yeah.
For all of it. Yeah. They can barely, matter of fact, this is the board that the person didn't change the status of the listing that we had a problem with. Remember?
Oh my God. Yeah.
So the board member.
Can you imagine this?
The person.
Yeah, like he's wanting to do that, like blatantly wrong and like
blatantly. So I'm not doing it, right? And look, they're going to be in charge of this. That's just comical. And
he's Christina on the board. He's probably on the committee to go after people.
Yeah, right. Christina just made a comment. Christina just made a comment that says, "How can you be self-employed and not know what the DOJ is?"
Oh, right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but they got a broker license. So, hold on. Let's go back to this.
Now with listing agreements, if we need to see a copy, we will request a copy, and then you will be obligated to return that copy of that particular BBA to us.
So if something happens, you got to send it to them. They review it. If it's wrong, you're in trouble. There you go.
If it's not compliant, then there are two different things, two different actions that can happen, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. But
so again, you're sending it to them before you do a showing,
a BBA,
or you're just sending the template. You're sending the template.
No. You got to have it on file and kept. They don't want it unless they ask you for it.
Okay, so you have to keep your own records,
right?
And then the second that they want to like go, oh, I want this agent's last 20 showings right now.
Right. You got to give them to them. And if you don't have them, violation.
Wow.
So the agents are going to have to upload them into their system with you. It's just now. Do you want to trust that? What if they go show a property, never put it in? I mean, listen.
They're not a police department. I just don't understand how they're the ones that have to enforce.
Because they had to agree to this so they didn't get sued. They had to agree to this to be in the settlement.
Okay.
Day before touring. a property. How are we
NAR
gonna
threw
know that?
everybody under the
We
bus.
may not know, but we also may hear from other agents that say, hey, so-and-so didn't have a BBA when they showed my listing. And then we'll have to investigate and follow through on.
The bottom line for me, if you want to show my listing, I want the BBA. That solves my problem.
Right, like send it over to me before I
Yeah, you're not getting
without
getting access till I have it.
confirmation. Right.
Right. Matter of fact, when you place the listing, send me the BBA or I'm not giving you access.
That. We'll ask for copies, but we have to make sure that once we get that copy.
I'm surprised they didn't require that. I'm surprised they didn't require the listing agent to have a copy of it. I'm surprised.
We'll be looking.
That will happen.
Signatures,
That will happen
and we're going
in
to
time.
be looking to make sure that all those 4 components are included in your BBA. So another broker action item for your checklist is be certain that the form that you use in your brokerage is compliant and contains each one of those components. We're certain that Florida Realtors forms will be compliant and available soon. If you create your own,
Soon.
please be 100% sure that it is compliant.
We have a few questions coming through the Q&A. I'm seeing some themes. So the first one is asking about, for that objectively ascertainable amount, ranges. Can we
No.
address that?
No. And it has to be a flat amount. It can't be a range. It has to be exact. There can be no wiggle room. Now, if you have an opportunity where you might be able to get paid more, this is kind of where the relationship with the buyer comes in. Because the buyer, if you're doing a great job, they're probably going to be happy to amend or whatever your BBA to allow you to get.
Now that's even crazy. What do you have an agreement for if you can amend it? Like if you have an agreement for X amount of dollars, you can change it later. Like that's great. What's the point of the agreement? You know?
Wow.
But it will be their choice, the buyer's choice. If you as the buyer brokerage get more, buyer's broker get more compensation than was originally agreed to in the BBA.
The other question that we're getting a lot of we're talking about for residential property, but what about residential vacant land or residential rentals?
I was thinking about rentals earlier. I do not believe that this applies to rentals. Chris, have you?
It doesn't apply to rentals.
Is somewhat vague. So while we are removing the compensation fields for all
Yes.
listing types, generally speaking, that the plaintiffs were home sellers.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm kind of hearing is that for rentals, this may or may not be as important.
And you know what,
Vacant land's a little-
we'll get an answer on that. We will get to NAR and we'll get a
Yeah.
specific response on whether this applies to rentals, and we'll be sure to get it out there.
And same thing with vacant land, because
Not
even
a
though it might be
vac-
likely- okay.
Yeah, that only on the residential 4 units or less is it required, but that is a really good point that I forgot to mention earlier. We are removing all compensation fields on all property classes on August 6th. So there will be no compensation. If we're doing this out of the abundance of caution and to avoid, well, I didn't know I could or I couldn't because you can here and you can't there. So we're completely removing all of the compensation fields from every property class, including rentals, vacant land, commercial, whatever it might be. They will all be gone. This requirement for buyer broker agreements pertains to residential 4 units or less, and we will check on rentals.
And the other question we're getting a lot of is about open houses. And there is a specific frequently asked question that NAR put out saying that if you're doing an open house on behalf of the seller and a buyer walks in and asks questions, that would not necessarily require a BBA. But I would recommend check out the NAR FAQs. We'll link to those later. And that addresses the open house question. We've got a few.
Wow. Wow.
The NAR FAQs are very, very detailed, and they're worth reading as much as there's like 90 of them. One of the pieces that I seem to recall from that is if you are at an open house, you are representing the seller. And so you don't need a BBA. If an unattached buyer shows up, you can show them the property without a BBA because you're representing the seller. But all of those questions definitely.
But that means you're not paying anybody.
Of course,
So
Florida Realtors is a great resource as well.
Yeah.
Jeff has been trying to interject.
depends how you-
So Jeff, go ahead.
I'm seeing questions pop up. The one of them was representation, transaction brokerage versus the word exclusive is not code word for single agency. So realize that there's a buyer brokerage agreement for transaction brokerage. There's also one for single agency. So my assumption is as Florida Realtors reworks those forms, they will maintain that or offer more clarity on that. And then we're still getting into ranges. Jennifer just posted something about if seller offers X and buyer offers is buying in a BBA for Y, can you combine them? No, it's going to be an explicit amount, and it's going to err on the side of lower. Frankly, I mean, forget the emotion behind what that means. They're trying to clarify. So you're not going to combine it. You're not going to do all that kind of stuff. It just is. And I appreciate the questions on the rentals because frankly, I focus on sales. So, but
Yeah,
something
nobody
to keep in the back of your head. There's a whole group of realtors in the state of Florida that are, and non-realtors, who frankly have been doing commercial real estate, and this is their world, or this is not new to them at all, because each side compensates the other, or they negotiate it in the middle. There's also 18 or 19 states in the United States that are
There's 13 states, not 18 or 19, just so you know.
or where we're going mandated.
And I'll give you an example. He's saying there's 18 or 19 states that do this anyway. North Carolina is one of them. I'm licensed there. North Carolina,
Right.
you can't be a transaction broker. You got to represent buyer or seller. Same brokerage cannot represent both. It's illegal. They call it dual agency. See, Florida has transaction broker. Dual agency is illegal here too. Brokerage can represent both, but as a transaction broker, you can. So 13 states don't allow it. North Carolina is one of the 13. Tennessee does. They call it a facilitator. We call it a transaction broker. So I'm licensed in those states. I do business there. So I do business here in Florida, okay, that would be illegal in North Carolina. I do things in North Carolina that would be illegal in Florida.
Wow.
It's just that every state has different laws. So you have to be able to do that, okay? So you have to be able to know what you're doing. And a couple comments here, they're saying it's scary stuff. It's very scary, one person here. Amber said that. And the truth of the matter is you need to work with a broker who knows what they're doing. You need to work with a brokerage that's going to stay on top of this. And you have to stay on top of it as a professional.
Right.
If you're not, you might as well get out of the business, because you're going to get sued and you're going to be, you may lose a license, get it revoked. If that happens, you can't get another license again,
Right.
in anything, so you might as well say, listen, I'm getting out of here, or I'm going to do this the right way. And if you're there's brokers here that don't know what the DOJ are. You think you want to work with them? I don't know. But the point of the matter is that's what's out there. And it's listen, I've been doing this since I was 19 years old. I've been in this business, developing, building, doing things out of the box. I refuse to let the government break my business or break me in it. Refuse. I refuse to let agents that may show a house without me knowing make a problem for me. I refuse. So you're going to find good brokers who are not going to have agents. They're just going to run their business and do it. See, over the last 20 years, the agents became the clients of the brokers, not the people, not the buyers and sellers, because they would build the brokerage, make the money off the agents, and get a piece of everything. That's going to change. That's going to change now.
Yeah. Wow.
The brokers are going to go back to the people and make their money, and they're not going to worry about the agents, because 80-90% of them are incompetent anyway. And you may not want to hear that, but hey, facts are facts, man. That's what it comes down to. So
if you're a realtor hearing this, you need to be a professional in your field and become an expert of this stuff and know what you got to do, when you got to do it. Be good at the
broker has to know, because think about it. If you work for a brokerage who's not staying on top of it, and one of their agents that you don't even know breaks a rule, and then the broker gets banned from the MLS, guess who's not in the MLS anymore? You, because that brokerage is gone.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be associated with that. You want to find a broker who knows what they're doing and work with them, and that's it. And keep yourself, basically protected as best you can, or become a broker yourself and just do your own deals. It's tough, because you got to trust people, and in a world today, it's hard to trust anybody, man. It's hard
brokers were like, just if you have a pulse and you want to do a deal at my place, and you got a license, which means you passed all the background checks. I
know people, Mark. I know people that got in trouble recently. They got their real estate license, kept it for 2 years, never closed the deal. Got their broker license, opened a brokerage, never closed the deal. What they did was they would be the broker of record for other people, and have like 4 or 5 brokerages. They get paid a salary plus a piece, and they were just a broker of record for other people who were owning the company. Because you don't have to have a license. You don't have to have a license to own a brokerage. Only one owner has to be a broker of record, licensed and active. and they had 4 or 5 companies, and they got busted up on one of them, and they lost their license on all of them, and they may be going to jail. It's still going on, but because they were breaking the law. So you don't have to know what you're doing. You could not know what the DOJ is and be a broker. If you could pass, if you could pass 2 tests. If you came to my school, and learned,
So-
I teach,
So that's a straw broker then, right?
well,
Like
I
you're
mean,
kind of like you're a straw broker where you're
well, it's
using
technically not, because they're
a
broker of
license.
record. They're responsible. Now if they didn't that's kind of what this person was doing. They were not
Wow.
doing anything. They were just getting paid, not going. They weren't doing anything, and they were acting as a straw broker, and
Yeah, I
that's
love it.
illegal. I mean,
Straw
and the people
broker,
who are running
new
it,
terminology.
the people who are running it are actually going to be level 3 felons, class 3 felons, because they were practicing real estate without a license. So that's a
Wow.
class 3 felony. But that's kind of what it is. Right?
Wow, it's good that they're cleaning up the market though, because it really
yeah.
needed to
Oh, yeah.
level up its professionalism with because it was making it too easy, I think, for people, and they had too much free reign. Yeah.
Yep. Let's get back to this, because there's a little bit more here that's really important, man.
Okay, let's do it.
So if you guys like this, man, and anybody who's watching, please, subscribe to our page, like, comment. We're going to be doing a lot of things outside the box. This is just an important thing that's coming up, and I really want to share it with people because it's very important to our industry. But we also do fun things too. We did our first live last week. We're gonna be doing lives Wednesday nights at 8 on different topics.
Yes.
Last week on Wednesday, we actually
and making
had
pizza.
The pizza. We were making pizza. My son was out on the pizza bus.
Yes.
But yeah. So that's this. Let's get back to this real quick.
By law. Now they're probably still displaying compensation, but they still operate under buyer brokerage. So again, we're freaking out in Florida because it's new. But there's huge percentages of us that are in the room that are already currently practicing this, or are used to it from other states. So the world's not going to end on the 19th of August. We will still transact real estate. There's also frustration in NAR. I get it. And because I too am frustrated, and I'm a director and all that stuff. Yep, you can. All that is legitimate and real, and you can voice it to NAR itself, because there's certainly enough anger out there relative, especially if you were part of the $2 billion club and you got excluded from the agreement, because those people, including my company, is writing checks. So there you go.
Mary Jo, if I could just pipe in here, because there's a lot of questions about this and I've been answering them, but goes back to that range of percentage amounts or up to a certain percentage amount or dollar amount. And let's be very clear. The BBA has to have a specific dollar amount or a specific percentage. And if the seller is offering a different percentage that is higher, in order for you to receive that higher amount from the seller, you have to go back and renegotiate your buyer's brokerage agreement with your buyer. And your buyer must agree to that additional compensation that you would be receiving. So let's be clear, it's a specific dollar amount or percentage. And if the seller is offering compensation, great. But if it's higher than what you agreed to with your buyer, then you have to then you would need to renegotiate that with your buyer. I just wanted to make that super clear, because there's a lot of that coming up in questions. So,
and that is again, I know we're almost out of time here, so I don't know what slides we have to finish this off, Jennifer. Do we have a minute or so? So let's talk about go ahead to that next slide. And we wanted to be sure that you're aware that the enforcement for having a buyer brokerage agreement, as all of the other new rules are, level 3, severe violation of the rules.
Oh, $500
we will have a
right out the gate.
60-day grace
Then
period.
2,500, then 15,000.
October 6th. So before we start assessing any fines on this, to give you all a chance to get used to having these, but we will still enforce the rule. We just won't assess any fines.
Wait, say that again. So when
60 days, but it will be a
They're gonna I'll go back.
60 days. So if it's
October
the 7th.
6th.
Okay, October 6th. So they're going to levy violations, but then you won't actually have to pay fees. Okay, good. At least they're rolling it out. That's what they did in the lending business.
We will have a 60-day grace period between August 6th and October 6th. So before we start assessing any fines on this, to give you all a chance to get used to having these, but we will still enforce the rule. We just won't assess any fines until after 60 days. But it will be a severe fine. First offense, automatic $500. The key piece that's a little bit different here for those of you that are brokers, currently all of the penalties and fines go to the agents. However, in this case, if the form itself that your agent used is not compliant with those 4 requirements that I mentioned earlier, then the penalty will be coming to you as the broker.
Now remember, Mark, this is just for the BBA. This isn't for the commissions. Commissions is instantly. This is a separate thing. So don't get confused.
Oh,
with the other.
yeah. Okay.
Commission is day one. You do that, you're done. This is just for the buyer side. This is separate. Just don't conflate it. We also got a comment. Christina made a comment here quick about being transaction brokers. Yeah, 99% of the brokerages are transaction brokers. There's less legal liability. I can get into the single agent transaction and no brokerage relationships. I teach it in courses all the time. But she's saying it's going to be rough. They're saying it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for anybody. These rules apply if you're a single agent, transaction broker, or no brokerage relationship. Being a transaction broker has nothing to do with these rules. No matter what agency you have, it still applies. You could be a single agent, a no brokerage relationship, or a transaction broker with a seller or a buyer at all times. Matter of fact, the forms they're talking about, the buyer broker agreement, there's 3 of them. One is a buyer broker agreement for transaction broker, one's a buyer broker agreement for single agent, and one is a buyer broker agreement for no brokerage. And the same thing for listings. There's 3 types of exclusive listings. There's all different types, and there's a type for each one. So you can be a single agent listing, exclusive, and a buyer agent, or a no brokerage, or a transaction broker.
Right.
Now, the transaction broker is presumed in Florida. So if you don't have any other form, you're automatically transaction broker by law, unless you say you're a single agent or unless you say you're a no brokerage relationship. So basically, you're automatically a transaction broker unless you tell them differently. That's just how Florida works for buyers and sellers. Now in North Carolina, there's actually a pamphlet, and they got to sign a document saying they read the pamphlet. When you sit down with them before you work with them, you have to explain the agencies, and they have to sign off. People lose their license every month in North Carolina. I get a bulletin on the first of the month. People lose their licenses, all the hearings. People actually lose their license for not having that form signed for the agency.
Wow.
It's insane. It's insane. That's how strict they are. It happens all the time. So
interesting.
Again, in Florida, you're automatically transaction broker unless you state otherwise. And a lot of brokerages, you're mandatory to be a transaction broker unless the broker approves you for that transaction to be something else. Because you have to remember, the agent is facilitating for the broker. The client is the brokers. The buyer and the seller and the broker is the agreement. You're just signing as a representative for a broker as an agent.
Right.
So the client belongs to the broker. You're facilitating it. That's how it works in Florida. Okay. So that was just for Christina there, so she understands the difference. Okay, let's go back into this.
Wow.
Just, again, we want you to be sure that you are selecting the form you want your agents to use, and that falls on to you to make sure, of course, that they're using the right one. But if you're using the Florida Realtor forms, it most likely will never be an issue. It's, again, just a caution to be very careful if you create your own forms. Okay, we have like 2 minutes left, Jennifer. So a couple of recaps. July 23rd, the new seller concession fields will launch. August 6th, compensation fields will be removed. The new rules on buyer agreements, all of the new rules, disclosures, all of those will go into effect on August 6th. Do we have a little checklist, Jennifer, for the last slide? Okay, let's go. Yeah, I'll keep going there. Okay, we're going to skip to this. So your checklist, and we talked about all this today, please keep in mind, create a policy, an office policy regarding concessions before July 23rd. And that could include also, do you want to go back and have your agents backfill concessions, because that field will be blank on any existing listings. It will be a field optional going forward. Prior to August 6th, remove all references to compensation. That's okay.
Sorry.
My eyes are going to cross here. So remove all references to compensation in active, pending, and TOM listings. That is for you and your agents to make sure it is done, because there is no grace period for this fine. We will be very assertive and very aggressive. Please review and create an office policy regarding your buyer brokerage agreements. Be sure your BBA that you and your associates use is compliant with those 4 must-haves, and please ensure that all of your agents and office staff are aware of the new rules. We have several similar forums to this coming up for agents. Do we have that slide, Jennifer, real quick? Because it has a QR code that you might want to snap really quick.
Find it. It's coming. It's coming. There it is.
All right, so on your screen, if you want to scan the QR code, it'll take you to our page that has all kinds of resources, has links to the NAR FAQs, our own, some videos. We have Facebook Lives coming up. We've had two, we'll have one tomorrow on Friday, one on July 19th, another one on July 26th. We have agent town halls. You'll find all of that on the site when you go to the QR code. Please, 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 please have your agents. I'm asking you to make it required that your agents attend one of our sessions, our agent town halls, so that they're informed. That would be so helpful to all of us to kind of keep our disruption and get everybody informed and keep these going. And I know we're out of time. I will say that we'll do our best to go back through the Q&A and create some FAQs for you, or create a document that can refer you to the correct place in the NAR settlement. But please check out facts.realtor for all the FAQs. There's a ton of knowledge there, videos that you can share with your agents, all kinds of information to help get everybody up to speed. And here's the QR code again.
There's the QR code again, and those additional resources. But one other quick thing, we do have, I know there's a lot of questions about the forms and when will the forms be available. We have that here on a slide. I'm trying to find it, but Florida Realtors has worked on, they have released some new forms, and they are working on and plan to release additional forms mid-July and late July. So I just wanted to answer that question because I told everybody I would. So just be aware. And if you have questions on those, please reach out to Florida Realtors.
At least they're coming. That'll give everybody
and
8 days. 8 days to implement it.
Transaction desk and SkySlope
train and implement their team,
and have been in
wow.
Simplicity as well.
So that's it, guys. Let me get out of here, and we're going to come back on. And we're going to take the screen off here. All right. So that's where we are. That's what we got, man.
Wow. Thanks, Philip, for that. That was
As
great.
of now.
First time, yeah. Really seeing how it's being rolled out.
Yeah. So my whole thing is, how does it affect the brokers? Where does it go from here? How do you implement it? I have my attorney drawing up my documents now. My new policy procedures for this section. I have a manual, of course, but we're going to have to take the manual and add an addendums to it for this. I have a meeting with my agents on August 6th or August 2nd. We're going to sit down and we're going to do a meeting on this through Zoom. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I'm still, am I going to deal with buyers? Am I going to even have my agents work with buyers? I may not. I'm waiting for the attorney to give me his advice. I mean, 90% of my business is sellers anyway. You know, we list property, we find buyers for those properties. That's what I do. And I don't advertise. I haven't advertised for 10 years for buyers. You know, I get buyers now because of the internet. People call me to see me on interviews with Saks Realty and things. I'm working with like 6 buyers right now. They're all ready to sign. They're all ready to sign the broker agreements, but I honestly, I don't know if I want to do it like after this. If I don't put them under contract by the 17th, or by the 8th now, this one, the 6th, or whatever it is, I don't know if I want the aggravation. I don't need the aggravation, honestly. I mean, it's not about the money. It's just, why do I want aggravation in my life? You know, I'm at a point in my life where I could have retired 5 years ago. You know, I don't need to do this. I'm doing this because I want to give a business to my son. I want to teach him. He's a broker and an instructor with me. You know, so for me, what do I want this for? For what? The government, they're destroying everything. I mean, just look at what they're doing.
Well, I see you day to day. You have a passion to help people. I know you're getting everything all ready for Aiden and like all of the businesses and stuff. But I see your passion, like even like decades ago when we started to work together, you were teaching your buyers, you were teaching the listing, the sellers. You know, I saw it with my own eyes. I mean, you have a heart and a passion to help people, Philip. You do.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're not allowing it. So if I convert to just listings, and listen, if my agents don't want to do listings and they want to work with buyers, hey, they can find a broker to work with to go with buyers, right? I don't need it. Like, I have a way of running a business, operating. I'm super successful, top 5% in the country of all brokerages. I mean, I own the school, I have the brokerage. I mean, why open myself up to the DOJ looking at me, a lawyer up my ass, waiting for somebody to make a mistake, because listen, people either love me or hate me. I don't give a shit. Like my whole life, I've been the guy that walks in a room. I don't care. Like I don't care what people think or say. I'm successful. They hate you for it. They either hate you or they love you. No one's ever going to say, he's okay about me. They either love me because they're on board with me or they hate me because they can't be me. That's really what it comes down to. And I'm okay with it either way. But this opens me up. And I don't mean to sound like an idiot, but it opens me up to something that I don't open myself up to. Like I don't do things to open myself up to legal problems. And why do I want to have agents? Maybe even if they're not going to show a house without an agreement, why do I want to deal with that? Why do I want to have to tell a buyer, hey, you got to pay me 2, 3, 4% to work with you before I even open a door? Why do I want to do that? Like it's for what? Why do I want to have 15 people calling me from a Zillow ad? Or I don't want that. Who wants that? What buyer? Do you know how hard it is? I mean, everyone I talk to signed a broker agreement. Why? Because they know I know what I'm doing. I'll find them a house. I'll get the seller to pay closing costs. The market's hot. I got sellers to pay closing costs. You've seen that how many times?
Yeah.
Why? Because I make them want to sell it more than my guy want to buy it. That's what I do. I know how to deal with people. That's what happens. And the thing is, I don't want the aggravation. Like it took me a half hour with all these people to talk and just explain this to them. You got to do this. We got to do that. We got to do this. Once I explain to them, they're like, okay, I understand. Sign.
Right.
It's not what I want to do. I'd rather work with people who want to sell their home, show them why there's nobody on earth that could do it better than me. Here's why. Here's what we do. We put the property in 140 countries, 18 different languages, 2/3 of the deals. I bring the buyer. I don't do the 3 Ps. Put it on the market, put a sign in the yard and pray somebody comes and buys it. 90% of your agents do that.
Yeah.
They're still praying,
because they're going to their other job. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. They got to go bartend tomorrow night or something. But the thing I'm trying to make is that's what it comes down to. It's just like, do you want to do it? Like, do you want to have the aggravation? Because they're looking for the littlest mistake to come after you. These lawyers aren't going to give up, dude. Every lawyer now, it's not just these guys, it's everyone. So, what stops a lawyer? Okay, just think about the ADA lawyers. They send you into the restaurant, and if the bathroom's not wide enough, they try to sue you ADA. Give me $11,000 or I'm going to file a lawsuit and report you.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? If you don't, you know what I'm talking about? Like the ones, they walk in and they're, the wheelchair. It's a 1939 building and you can't make a ramp and they try to sue you, get 5-10 grand out of you. What's going to stop lawyers from sending somebody into a real estate brokerage and say, hey, I want to see this house. Can you take me?
Right.
What's going to stop that? Oh yeah, I don't want to sign nothing. Come on, I just want to see the house real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, they call you up now for, the
Right.
states, they call you up for discriminatory things. Hey, do you rent out Section 8 housing? If you say no, you're done. They do stuff like that. They report. That's community service. When you get arrested for drunk driving, they make you do stuff like that. When I had the bar and restaurant, they used to get underage kids. Underage kids would get in trouble. They send a 17, 8-year-old kid into the bar to see if they get a drink. If they got a drink, boom, they came in and gave you a fine on the spot and put a mark on your license. They do that on Saturday night at 1:30 when it's busy and there's 15,000 people in there, and they try to, So what's going to stop attorneys from sending 15 people out to do that a day, and then they get 2,500, 2,500, 2,500, 2,500?
Wow. What is the industry landscape going to look if a lot of other brokers do say, the risk isn't worth it? I mean, is title companies, is lenders?
You want to hear the
lenders?
You want to hear the
do a
solution?
loan with me, and I'll show you 1,000 houses.
Well, here's the solution, and the world's got to hear this. If you're an educated buyer, and you're working with a buyer's agent, and they say, "Listen, Mr. Buyer, I need to get 2 or 3%. I'm selling you a $500,000 home. We're going to go look at them. I need you to sign this agreement, 2 or 3%. Okay? So you're going to pay me $10,000 or $15,000 to show you homes, go through it with you, do all the paperwork, do everything you've done, right? An educated buyer is going to say, You're going to charge me 2-3%. I want to see these 5 houses over there. I'm going to call the 5 listing agents to show me the house. Those 5 listing agents are getting paid from the seller. Well, I'll call the listing agent, go look at them. I find one I like. I'll say, Mr. Listing Agent, can you represent me as a transaction broker? I don't want to pay you, but I'll let you represent me as a transaction broker. That listing agent getting 3 or 4% from the seller. They're getting 3 or 4% from the seller, no matter who the buyer is. Why wouldn't they just do the paperwork for free, or charge them $500 or $1,000 or $2,500 instead of $15,000 or $10,000? And then they take their documents. Now that listing broker, okay, that listing broker has to act as a transaction broker. They have to facilitate the deal. They can't screw the guy over. They can't pick one side or the other.
Yeah, because they're representing the seller.
So they
Right,
have to do
gotta
the
write it.
inspection. They have to do the
Oh,
inspection.
yeah.
They have to make sure the appraisal. They got to treat the customers the same legally. They can't pick one over the other, transaction broker. So now,
Wow.
Mr. and Mrs. Seller, now now I get all my listings and I say, okay, these are my listings. Hey, buyers, if you buy a listing from me, one of my listings, I'll charge you $500, or I'll charge you nothing, or I'll charge you $1, or I'll charge you 1%. It's still better than paying a broker 2 or 3%.
Right.
And have your lawyer look it over for $500 if you don't like it, if you think there's something wrong. You're still saving thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and you're getting treatment from a transaction broker facilitating the deal and walking you through every part of the process. Now, don't mind you. 2/3 of my deals, I do this way anyway.
Right.
I have both sides. You see that? I have both
Yeah.
sides of the deals when I do it.
Yep.
So what's going to stop good listing brokers from saying, why have a buyer broker? Come to me. I'll charge you less. When they
Right.
come to you, you do a buyer broker agreement with them. Then you show them the house.
So is the landscape going to be open houses are going to be the new thing? Like every listing agent's going to sit in open houses?
No, who's going to have open houses, dude? Listen, Mark, people call me from out of state. I get online with them. I show them the houses online. We put a deal together. They come down for the inspection period, make sure they want it. It's not 1978. It's 2022, 24, 24, whatever it is. People, there's no emotion in that anymore. They don't have to come look at the drapes. They see everything online. There's virtual tours. There's walkthroughs. The world's changed, buddy. So,
Yeah,
so
wow.
I've been planning this for 4 years since they've been doing this. I knew this was coming through.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, I'm gonna put a billboard up. If you buy a listing from me, there's no fee.
That's awesome.
You know, but that's crazy, right? Like, it's the simplest thing. I've been building my broker model for this for 4 years. Most of the brokers don't even know what's going on.
Wow.
They're trying to figure out what the DOJ is. So
That's so funny.
this is the solution. In the beginning, be confused. In situations, right? So eventually they're going to say, well, why am I even dealing with this broker when I can go straight to this person?
Yeah.
Right. And
That's a valid
save
point.
money and get treatment, legal treatment. They got to treat you legal, like as a transaction broker.
Wow.
Christina asked a question. Do you need a broker agreement or a buyer broker agreement if you're the listing agent? Yes. You still need it. You still need it, because technically, if you're showing the property, that's the rule. If you're showing a property, doesn't matter if it's yours or anybody else's. If you're showing a property, you need it. If you're representing them as an agent under any brokerage relationship. So if they're coming to look at your listing, yes, they got to sign a buyer broker agreement that you're showing it to them, because you would be breaking that.
And it sounds like you would get what, 500 fine and 25 for the second one. So if your buyer agreement is dated the day after you showed a house and then they call you on it,
you're done, man.
Yeah, you're 500 or 2,500 an offense.
Yeah.
With this MLS.
Listen, after the third one, if you have 100 agents, think about like a big Keller Williams or a big EXP or one of them, thousands of agents. You're telling me that'll happen 15 times a day, 100 times a day.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see, man. But that's the solution.
Man.
I believe buyer agents are out of business between this, the fact that they got to convince a buyer to pay 2-3%. They got to have all this stuff signed, and the market conditions. How about the market conditions?
Yeah.
Let's not forget about that. I think buyer agents creates. Now, here's the other thing. Lawyers and loan officers are getting their real estate license. They're going to do RESPA agreements. They already have the relationship with the buyer, like you. You already get them pre-approved. They're ready to go.
Yep.
What if they can deal with you to see the house too?
Yeah.
They already have your trust.
Yeah.
So my next class is September. I have a class full of loan officers and lawyers getting their real estate license.
Interesting.
So now they're going to be dealing with that. The title company lawyers, the lawyers are going to be going after the buyer broker's business too.
Wow.
That's happening as we speak. Association recommended loan officers get their real estate license publicly.
Wow.
There was an Inman or a Housing Wire report. They recommended every loan officer to get your real estate license and do RESPA agreements so they can represent them.
Wow.
So what happens? Who's the king? Who's going to be the key? The listing agent.
Yeah.
I've been saying that for years.
Very
And I think that's where it's going to go. That's going to be the solution. Deal with them. I also truly think the big brokers are involved in this, because right now the big brokers get what, 20% of the deals?
Yeah.
If they can eliminate agents and they can do something like Carvana where the listings go in one place and you click and you call the broker directly. Now big brokers can hire agents on a salary, $50,000 a year, and have them facilitate paperwork and keep all the commission.
Yeah.
I think that's going there too. I think that's coming too.
Wow. What about a buyer MLS? Like, I mean, where buyers
give me 1 second. Amber asked a question. Each property, even with the same client. Yes. Okay. Because here's what happens. If you're representing the seller as a transaction broker, you're representing the buyer as a transaction broker. It's two separate transactions, even though it's the same house. It's two separate files, two separate transactions. Yeah. Now, okay, another question too, Christina. I watched a video today for the buyer broker training for CARF. That's California Association of Realtors. They had a cancellation clause for the buyer, so the buyer could back out with no consequences. Does Florida Association of Realtors have that? That's actually, it's up to you. It's up to you.
Oh wow.
You when you do a buyer broker agreement, California too. What's the point of having it? Why would you work with a buyer who wants that? They're only going to let you see the house and walk away and have their sister sell it to them and get the commission.
Wow.
So, but here's the thing. In the buyer broker agreement, it has a term. You can do a term for 6 months, 2 months, 1 day. Or you can even say, I'm showing you 10 listings. This agreement is for these 10 listings. You can put the listing numbers down. I'm going to show you these 10 houses. Here's the 10 listings. That's what we're going to do. After that, it's dead. Now, if they want to buy one of those houses for the 180 days, you're good. But they're allowed to go to another broker if you're not. So you can do it for one house, 10 houses, 1 day, 180 days. It's all up to you. It's just whatever you want to put in on the agreement.
Oh, wow.
Now the California Association of Realtors, I'd be weary of them because they were just fighting. They just came to their senses. They were going to go against it. They were going to continue doing business the same way. So you got to see what they're doing. MLS Pin's doing something else. There's other MLSs that aren't involved with this whole situation. They're continuing business as is. Listing brokers are still paying. That's out in Washington, out west. So they're not involved yet. They'll be sued next. That's coming. They said, go ahead, sue us. That's what they said. So That's kind of what's happening. Now there's another one. It's my understanding that we can put a vague location on the buyer, like Orange County, for example, as opposed to property address. No, you can. You could put single family home, Orange County, townhouse, Orange County. You can do that. But now, what happens if they look for a single family home in Orange County, but you sell them something in I don't know, Orange County's what? That's Orlando. What if you sell them something in Osceola County in Kissimmee? Right. Now you got a problem in court. You might not get paid. So I would put single family home.
Or if you update your agreement the day after you showed them the house in the other county.
Yeah. And it's dated that way. You
500 first offense, 2,500 the second.
Correct. And if they want to give you a hard time, they could take you to court and try to fight you back for it. And don't put nothing by anybody. One of the things I teach my agents is you cover, like I have binoculars built in my eyes. I see things coming from 10 miles away. I've been doing this all my life. So I cover yourself, cover every possibility, even if they're your best friends, because this is business. This isn't friendship.
Yeah.
Okay. Money is a very strange elixir. People put money in, and it's just like a drink. You have a vodka and cranberry, but as soon as you put pineapple in there, it's a whole different drink, right? So that's an elixir. When something gets added into something, it changes the whole thing. And money is probably the greatest elixir of all, because it changes everything: relationships, people, family, everything. So when it comes to business, you cover yourself 1,000%, and you don't give them a way in. And that's just my advice. I've seen it all since I was 19 years old. And cover yourself legally, cover yourself morally, ethically, do the right thing. Don't lie to people. You sleep good, you have nothing to worry about. The money comes because when you do the right thing, business comes, and you have contracts. Contracts pay you. So you just got to be in the right place, right time, deal with people, be honest, work hard, fight for what you believe in, and that's it. And it works. I've been doing it all my life. Real estate, nightclubs, restaurants, cigar bars. Everything I touch, that's what I do. And sometimes people love you for it. Sometimes people hate you for it. The people who hate you are trying to get over. The people who love you win with you. So that's really how the world works, man. So, and if they like you, great. If they don't, that's okay too. They don't pay your bills. So, but okay. So let's get finished up. What I want to do quick before we go, if anybody wants to call in, let me see. I can do in the comments. I can put a link in, and you guys can actually come in on camera with us and have a conversation. Let me get in here real quick. Let's go into the comments here. I got to go on YouTube to do that, so bear with me a second, guys. I got to go on the computer here. So I'm going to go on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, and I'm going to post in there a comment for us, and that comment will be a link. And what you can do is go on that link and click in the waiting room here. I can bring you guys in. And if not, I'll put a phone number up too if you guys want to call in.
That's awesome.
Let me
Come
go
on,
live
let's bring
here.
the questions.
See, I'm learning all this, man. This is pretty interesting.
What about the
second here.
buyer MLS thing? I mean, can buy? Do you think there's going to be a technology where everybody, like, if I'm a buyer, I just go post myself out there, and then hey, I want to do this, but this is like I'm going to need, I don't know, X dollar amount of seller help to do it.
Yeah, well, it's all negotiable, right? There, link to join in. Okay, I'm posting it right now. Figure out how to do it. Oh, man. All right, link. There's got to be a way to pin the comment, right? Here, pin message. Bingo. I'm learning it all, man. So normally I have Vic. He does all the back end stuff, like switching things around and putting things up on the screen and all that stuff. So I pinned the post there.
He took
yeah, he's here on Wednesdays. He does our Wednesday nights. So this was kind of last minute. I just wanted to do it because like everything going on, dude. Like it's like a, dude, I was in St. Augustine showing houses earlier. I mean, I had agents down there doing stuff in Tampa. I got 5 listings going on the market Monday. I got to go to Tampa. We got a $2 million place we're listing out on the water there in Garcia. There's a bunch of stuff we're working on, but I figure I come in here and have a conversation with people. Give me 1 second here. Let me put it up now. Okay, that's good for that. Okay. All right, so the link is up there if anybody wants to come. And I'm going to put up here now. If anybody wants to call in, call if you don't want to come on camera. You can call in. That's the number there. That's the office number. You can just hit 0, and it will put you right through, and I can put you on speakerphone, and we can have a conversation. Let's go through the comments here if we have anything else. I'm not seeing the comments on Facebook or YouTube anymore because I'm not on there. Let's see.
Maybe I could look at the YouTube.
Yeah. Just go on the YouTube channel. That's my problem. I can't have 2 windows open. That's why when I have here, it's much easier because he'll give me the comments and and everything. So yeah, if anybody wants to call it, we'll give you guys 5 minutes and then we're going to get out of here. We're going to call it a night. Let's see.
Yeah, good call. Good information, man. For somebody who went through this whole thing, you're
Buddy.
being serious about your business. Yeah.
Yeah, listen, it's my livelihood, man. This is what I do for a living. You know? Hold on. Let's see what we got here. Anybody coming in? We got anything? Nothing. I don't see it. All right, cool. All right, guys. No calls, nothing. Okay, so what we're gonna do is if anybody has any questions, all my comments are that ticker below. You guys want to set up a Zoom call, you want to know anything about the business or anything, just give me a yell. And we'll be back live on Wednesday night. So thank you guys for being here. And we will see you guys 8 p.m. We're going to be talking about the industry and getting in it. And I haven't thought the full topic yet. We're going to work on that. But all right, guys. So we're going to check out. It was great being here with you. Any questions, just reach out to us.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Great seeing everybody.